Chapter 381, Luo Feng's Combat System. Luo Feng, cloaked in black with hair as dark as ink, sat cross-legged at the center of the vast space-time. A lord was the pinnacle of life forms in the infinite mixed origin space, each ounce of power self-forged, each motion perfect mastery of one's own body. His thoughts raced like lightning, his comprehension had become terrifyingly fast. Within the scope of his mixed origin life extinguishment Dao, he pushed to create secret techniques, and one after another, they formed in his mind with alarming speed. Compared with opening a Hunyuan Dao, devising secret techniques was far easier. My old life operation system was brought in effect, but against ancestor-level opponents, its threat was limited, Luo Feng reflected. I need domain-type secret techniques specifically tailored for this. Using the more than 100 progenitors of the Eternal Origin Life Camp as hypothetical opponents, he contemplated domain tactics. Each progenitor's power was unique and supreme. Together, over 100 of them made the greatest force in the Mixed Origin Life Camp. So many obvious and subtle counters had to be accounted for. For ordinary secret techniques, he could understand tens of millions in a day. Ideas arrived at will. But to craft methods that could contend with 100 ancestor-level foes, he spent tens of thousands of days refining and discarding until finally he perfected a Sheng Mi domain secret technique. Next, I must create the combat secret technique most suited to me, he thought. His body contained enormous reserves of energy. The same move executed with 10 times the energy would be wholly different. My combat system must make full use of abundant energy. Not only was his reservoir vast, his recovery speed was also extraordinary. His recovery, 108 million primordial origins, ranked among the top 3 across the infinite mixed origin space. Time flowed. The combat techniques Luo Feng forged against the hypothetical onslaught of over 100 progenitors gradually took shape. In the initial land, within the dark lake space, the Seven Lords' avatars waited patiently. Luo Feng had already become a lord. The counterattack would come soon enough. They kept calm. How long will it take Luo Feng to finish his secret techniques? Jin asked. He broke through by sheer force in just over 2.5 billion epochs, Yuan replied. With that kind of comprehension, after becoming a lord, it should be quick for him to create combat techniques. Still, this time he faces 73 progenitors. He might be under some pressure. Minghuang smiled. Brother Luo Feng certainly has it rough, going up against such formidable foes right after breaking through. If it were me, Lord Naigu chuckled, I'd be panicking too. When I first became a lord, I only had 2 ancestor-level bloodlines and was at the bottom among the lords. I only recently reached a normal lord level. Luo Feng's different. Xingmang nodded. Every lord has a Dao they excel at. Luo Feng's mixed origin life extinguishment Dao is strongest in direct combat. In movement techniques, Luo Feng lagged behind Xingmang, Minghuang, Jin, and Mo Man. Mo Man himself was a primordial origin wave, ever-changing in form. Perhaps only Xingmang could surpass him. Luo Feng's body is huge. His movement may even be worse than mine, Wu Lan laughed. Although he has more energy than you, his body is only a third the size of yours, Xingmang said to Wu Lan, having already observed some of Luo Feng's future combat. Still a bit more flexible than you, Xingmang added, teasing Wu Lan. Lord Naigu considered. In movement, Luo Feng is only slightly above Wu Lan, second to last. In defense, he probably can't match Wu Lan either, who pursues extreme durability. How then can he be considered the best at direct combat? Because right now he has practically limitless energy, Xingmang said. He suppresses enemies with brute force. Limitless energy? Moman asked. Can it truly be endless? Xingmang shook his head. In the futures he had seen, Luo Feng treated energy as a non-issue. No matter how much he expended, Luo Feng stayed at his peak. His recovery outpaced his expenditure. That alone makes his direct combat strength among the strongest of us, Xingmang continued. He also broke through by overwhelming force and will likely comprehend a second mixed origin life extinguishment Dao later. Then, he'll exploit that limitless energy fully and use each unit of energy with maximum efficiency. Limitless energy, and every bit used ingeniously? Jin asked. One-on-one, who could stand against him in the infinite mixed origin space? That's why I say, Xingmang replied, he will be the strongest in direct combat in our camp. For the cultivator camp, he may prove more important than I am, Xingmang admitted. Xingmang's space-time powers benefited the camp in many ways. Peering into possible futures and the coverage of the space-time net let him appear anywhere within range. That ability to calculate opponents' flaws and avoid dangers was invaluable. Still, he understood a hard truth. Observing countless futures could help, but true strength was the essential factor. In his view, Luo Feng's growth relieved pressure and provided the raw power the camp desperately needed. A voice interrupted, and the seven lords saw a black-robed, black-haired man step into the dark lake space. "Luo Feng," they said in unison. "Sit," Yuan invited. Luo Feng casually settled on a large rock by the lake. "Have you finished creating your secret techniques?" Yuan asked. "I've studied the methods of those progenitors and designed some combat techniques," Luo Feng said. "I'm not yet sure how to coordinate them together." Yuan smiled. "Demonstrate each of your best moves, and I'll design a coordination plan for you." The formation Yuan could arrange would synchronize the Lord's methods, increasing their combined power dramatically. Luo Feng nodded. With a thought, a domain spread over the dark lake space. It shimmered with faint cyan light. Countless star-like motes rippled within it. "This is the Shengmi domain I created," Luo Feng explained. "Inside it, I can boost allies' life force, strip life force energy from enemies, and nullify some of their might. Against a swarm of progenitors, its effect will be relatively weak, but it has another use. Except for Brother Wu Lan, I can instantly restore any other lord, no matter how severely injured." The six lords who had been carefully sensing the domain froze at his words. Only Xingmang smiled. He had already known. "Even severe injuries can be restored?" Moman asked, astonished. He was the physically weakest among the lords. One-on-one, he would not fear the progenitors, but faced with more than 70 of them together, he worried his main combat avatar could be destroyed. "You mean if one isn't dead, they can recover instantly?" Ming Huang asked. "Even the strongest life restoration techniques shouldn't be able to do that." "This isn't life force recovery in the ordinary sense," Luo Feng said. "I convert my primordial origin power and supply it to you." Wu Lan's body held 1/3 of Luo Feng's energy. If Wu Lan were severely injured, Luo Feng couldn't promise full restoration, for Wu Lan's size and mass meant a huge demand. The other lords were much smaller. Even Lord Naigu, second only to Wu Lan in size, was only 1/10 of Wu Lan's body, which made him 1/30th of Luo Feng's. Luo Feng was, in effect, a spring of life able to replenish them easily. "My recovery reserves, 108 million primordial origins, are among the highest," Luo Feng continued. "They decrease somewhat after becoming a lord because the energy demand is greater, but I can still recover 1/10 in a single breath. That's enough to fully restore 3 Lord Naigus in one breath." "You convert your primordial origins to us? Doesn't that affect you?" the lords asked. They all understood how precious primordial origin power was to oneself. "No effect," Luo Feng said with a small smile. "My recovery is extremely strong. As long as our main combat avatars aren't dead, they can recover instantly. That doubles the strength I can afford to expend." Moman was excited. Previously, when using his strongest moves, he had to conserve energy, because if his main avatar's energy dipped too low, its strength and survivability would drop. With Luo Feng as a reliable source of restoration, he could unleash without reservation and keep a weak avatar by his side for restoration. "I can be more unrestrained now," Jin said, exhilarated. He flashed to Luo Feng, his hand sheathed in silver scales, gripping Luo Feng in a warm, enthusiastic clasp. "Brother Luo Feng, from now on you're my best brother. I have other tasks in the infinite mixed origin space. After the war, will you come with me?" Having a companion who could always restore one's peak state was a profound boon. Luo Feng nodded. Jin's clap on his shoulder and the easy camaraderie made the whole group feel stronger. "You were my best brother before," Moman said with a grin to Jin. "But things change." "Don't worry," Jin chuckled. "You're now second among my friends." Moman turned to Luo Feng. "Brother Luo Feng, we're a perfect match. I'll keep a weak avatar by your side, so my main combat avatar can unleash its full killing power, and you can restore the weak avatar to peak. I can continuously release my strongest attacks. With both of us working together, who in the infinite mixed origin space can stop us?" Jin, Mo Man, and Ming Huang looked at Luo Feng with renewed respect and expectation. Yuan smiled. Even with just Luo Feng's Shengmei domain, our overall strength should increase by at least 20%. Luo Feng's ability had less effect on Xingmang, Yuan, Wulan. Those three could generally sustain their peaks. It had a greater effect on Naigu and a very significant impact on the others. The seven lords sat together in the dark lake, the domain's cyan light glimmering around them. In that light, Luo Feng's contribution was already clear. Raw, inexhaustible energy translated into sustained peak performance, and a domain capable of turning the tide in long, grinding battles. Chapter 382. Participate in the war. Luo Feng, besides your domain, what else are you good at? Yuan asked. Mainly two things, Luo Feng replied. A physical combat system and a saber technique system. He began to demonstrate them one by one. The lords of the cultivator camp were open with one another. Their Dao, inheritances, and methods of combat were shared freely. That openness came from two places. First, they were comrades in arms, and the more they understood each other, the better they could cooperate. Second, each lord's Dao was unique. Even if two lords ever forged a primordial origin Dao that looked the same, the inner details and the spirit bound to it would be entirely different. Every lord had to follow the path that suited him best. Luo Feng and the others knew that when creating a primordial origin Dao, even a slight spiritual mismatch could mean failure. The life path moves tend to be more insidious and harder to counter, Jin said, watching with interest. But your techniques are fierce. I don't like pure life-based methods, Luo Feng said. Pure life techniques, draining vitality, permeation, erosion, were effective against world-level Hunyuan, but insufficient for progenitors. Those enemies required killing techniques born of a creation and destruction fusion. Luo Feng, when the 73 progenitors clash with our lords, they mostly use long-range methods, Yuan observed. Neither side dares to let their true bodies fall into the other's ranks. Luo Feng nodded. Once a true body was isolated among enemies, even Deputy Palace Master Xingjie could be heavily restrained or temporarily paralyzed. So you'll need to use long-range methods too, Yuan continued. I've already sent cooperation plans to everyone. Streams of information flowed into the seven lords. Yuan had simulated detailed battle scenarios, 8 lords cooperating against 73 progenitors, every possible exchange and counter calculated. Luo Feng scanned the simulations once and could deduce thousands of combat responses from them. Luo Feng's presence will increase our collective combat effectiveness by 30 to 40%, Yuan said, glancing at the others. The progenitors don't know about his breakthrough yet. We must take this chance to kill as many progenitors as we can. All the lords nodded. They had long been burning with retribution. They were the highest protectors of the camp and felt the loss of territory and countless lives acutely. Yuan assigned Xingmang, Starlight Lord, to take Luo Feng. Xingmang, you take Luo Feng and depart carefully, Yuan instructed. Understood, Starlight Lord replied. With Luo Feng joining the fight, the progenitors will dispatch reinforcements, Yuan warned. It'll take them about 3 days to arrive. Those 3 days are our window to expand our gains. The infinite mixed origin space was vast. Even with progenitors who excelled in spacetime, reinforcements needed days to cross the distances. Xingmang and Luo Feng departed. Luo Feng was the best at concealing his life aura in the whole infinite mixed origin space. He controlled every trace, making himself almost undetectable. Still, Xingmang's travel speed dwarfed even Luo Feng's. At my current life level, every step can cover an infinitely distant span, Luo Feng thought. But Starlight Lord's way of moving is on another level. Under Xingmang's feet, layers of spacetime unfold like a map. They traverse those layers step by step as if walking on a plane. Luo Feng watched in awe. This isn't just travel, he murmured. It's transcending spacetime itself. Each lord has his specialty, Xingmang said with a wry smile. I just happen to be good at traversing. Undying and transcendent, Xingmang continued. They endure hardship because they have to protect the cultivator camp. Lords were the most powerful individual beings in the infinite mixed origin space. If they acted selfishly, they could live more freely, but they had origins in the source worlds and owed their power to that nurture. No matter how powerful, one must not forget one's roots. We're struggling to hold the 3,600 world clusters. Over 600 have already fallen, Xing Mang said. Your talent rivals mine, but your path excels in combat. To defend vast territories, you rely on strength. Luo Feng nodded. The 3,600 world clusters were the densest region of source worlds, a natural place to build a space-time net. There were many other, far more sparsely populated clusters that would be even harder to defend. You're thinking too much, Xing Mang said. Our immediate task is to reclaim the 3,600 world clusters. They traveled for nearly a day before reaching the battlefield. The scene was an endless void, the shockwaves of war tearing apart source worlds at the edge of the fight. The 73 progenitors stood within a churning sea of space-time energy, each releasing top-tier powers that interwove into a terrifying whole. The Seven Lords' combat avatars strained against it. Yuan's formation was the margin of difference. The formation turned the Lords' cooperation into a force multiplier. Otherwise, even they could not weather the progenitors' combined onslaught. Luo Feng's presence added 30 to 40% to the team's might, significant, but still secondary to the value of Yuan's formation. Starlight Lord is splitting his power to hit other teams too, one progenitor growled. We must seize this chance. Then, with a ripple through space-time, Xing Mang brought them in. Starlight Lord descended into the Lord's formation, with a black-clothed, black-haired man at his side, Luo Feng. The two merged into the Lord's main combat avatar. The 73 progenitors noticed him instantly. Who is that? They demanded. As Luo Feng touched down, a Shengmi domain expanded outward. The domain quickly fractured when it reached the progenitor's area, but inside his own sphere, Luo Feng's primordial origin power bloomed, replenishing his allies. Mo Man, Jin, Ming Huang, and Nai Gu, all previously wounded, recovered to full strength. Under Yuan's formation, and now at his normal massive size, Luo Feng resisted the progenitor's onslaught alongside Deputy Palace Master Xingje. The offender's combined strike, the interlaced top-tier energies of 73 progenitors, smashed down like a cataclysm. Even after Yuan's formation attenuated it, the impact still battered Wulan and Luo Feng's bulk. Around Luo Feng, an invisible protective energy layer took the blows, an energy shield sustained by 108 million units of primordial origin power and replenished continuously. Still, some attacks ignored the barrier and penetrated his robes. His body, hardened by the creation and destruction fusion, and his comprehension of the Star Tower blood scale, had the toughness comparable to a tenth of a Star Tower blood scale. Wounds opened and bled, then promptly healed. Blood and regeneration painted a clear picture. Luo Feng was enduring. Hold on, his companions thought, relief mixing with worry. Luo Feng himself monitored the toll. Every breath affects every part of my body, he realized. Each breath consumes about 1% of my energy reserve, still within acceptable limits. Even with Yuan's formation and the Lord's domains helping to weaken the blows, the pressure was fierce. Wu Lan, larger in physique and built for ultimate defense, absorbed more than half the strikes like a living source world. Together, Luo Feng and Wu Lan formed a shield that took the brunt of the storm. The other Lord's burdens eased noticeably. Luo Feng's sudden appearance had been exposed to every force across the infinite mixed origin space. At the same time, his distant avatar within his home source world began to break through and refine that source world, an additional effect rippling outward, thanks to the new alliance leader, Werewolf 6, for the reward. Chapter 383, Burning the Main Combat Incarnation. The Cultivator Camp has gained another lord. Our strength was nearly halved. This new lord can actually hold his own? Jin, Mo Man, and Ming Huang, their powers are all restored. The progenitors' senses were acute. The moment Luo Feng appeared, they could infer his capabilities from his actions and grew even more uneasy. His physical body was terrifyingly strong. He could bring his allies back to their peak. The Cultivator Camp just added a dangerous lord, someone thought. Who is he? There's no intel on him at all. The progenitors had scant information on Luo Feng. They focused on world-level Hunyuan on the cultivator side. Invincible beings below the cage existed in every world cluster and were too numerous to track in detail. And with less than 2,000 eras passing in the outside world since Luo Feng was guided to break through, the war stage and heavy guarding of each world cluster had kept him under the radar. Be careful. Mo-Man's main combat incarnation has entered. A single voice echoed into the minds of all 73 progenitors. One among them was a massive, strange beast with dozens of hooves and a body covered in countless eyes, over 1,000 watching the Lord's side. Under that scrutiny, nothing the cultivators did could be hidden. Lord Mo-Man's sudden infiltration had been detected. Mo-Man has entered? Alarmed the others. Mo-Man himself was an origin-life fluctuation. If he transformed into a fluctuation, even the progenitors would struggle to distinguish his form. Ha ha ha! Qianyan, you found me! Mo-Man's wild laugh rang out, its tone dangerously seductive. Progenitors with weaker spiritual constitutions stumbled, seeing illusions. Let the whole infinite mixed origin space become fluctuations for me. With that frenzied cry, the vast space-time that housed the 73 progenitors began to twist. Every inch of space seemed to dissolve into surging waves of energy or into musical notes, countless notes forming a battle song that roared through their minds. The space-time itself fragmented into trillions of notes, and the 73 progenitors were churned, torn, and assaulted by the fluctuating tide. Only a few could respond in time. A perfect sphere held its place untouched. Initial. Of the more than 100 progenitors in the Eternal Origin Life Camp, only 4 sat in the Eternal Land, and Initial was one of them, an existence of peerless defense. It stabilized its immediate surroundings, but Mo-Man's move had turned the entire space-time into a weapon. Initial's protective radius was too small to halt the assault. Stabilize! Initial broadcast, clinging to a small bubble of safety. A giant snake roared and attempted a counter. The infinite serpent ancestor, supreme among the great serpent clan, and one of the most prestigious existences of the Eternal Origin Life Camp. Its space-suppressing might was immense, and it tried to seal the fluctuations. But even it was met by a transcendent suppression coming from the distance. Lord Xingmang had quietly made his move to help his companions. "Ha ha! Brother Mo-Man, I'm here too!" Lord Jin's wild laughter boomed. "You've angered us for too long. Let us show you the price of offending us." His voice had gone nearly mad. The black aura he commanded split into 13 tendrils and coalesced at critical nodes around the progenitors. As Mo-Man turned space-time into musical notes and the tremors reached a fever pitch, Jin's 13 auras simultaneously detonated. Boom after boom, 13 explosions detonated in an instant. Each blast multiplied force upon force until the cumulative power soared to an inconceivable level. The blasts were precise, synchronized perfectly with Mo-Man's fluctuation assault. Explosions and distortions overlaid each other like a single apocalyptic strike. This was a desperate, do-or-die attack from 2 lords. The combined fluctuation swept across every progenitor, attempting to erase them at the level of life essence. The progenitors fought back with everything they had. Even so, the full-power assault from Mo-Man and Jin was devastating. More than 10 progenitors with weaker protections were grievously wounded. Progenitors were tenacious. Killing one outright was nearly impossible, but severe injury was another story. "Die!" shouted another voice as the worst of the explosions began to subside. The injured progenitors had barely held on when blinding golden lightning split the sky. 12 bolts of dazzling light struck the 12 most badly hurt progenitors. Lord Ming Huang had burned her main combat incarnation as well, and her lightning never missed. She unleashed 12 of her strongest strikes without reserve, aiming straight at those 12 progenitors. The golden bolts scorched every part of their forms. Only by leaning on their companions' support did they remain. Luo Feng raised the sky-rending blade. He poured the limit of a single strike, 1/10,000th of his total reserves, into the swing. Sharp blade lights erupted, over 100 radiances shot forth. Guided by the meta-array and aided by Lord Xingmang's manipulation of space-time, the 100 blade lights dove into the heart of the progenitor's formation toward the 12 singled out. Most progenitors either withstood or dodged the blades, but one unlucky progenitor was cleanly cut in 2. Its body split, and its strength collapsed. "Kai Mo, enter my body, quick!" Initial transmitted hurriedly. If a progenitor hid inside Initial, none in the infinite mixed origin space could harm it. But Initial only offered sanctuary when a progenitor was in a state of extreme injury. In wartime, hiding inside meant one fewer progenitor actively fighting. Initial hesitated, but the need was urgent. At that moment, a massive palm descended from another timeline and swept into reality, closing over the severed Kuimo progenitor. Xingmang? Kuimo cried, shocked and angry. Kuimo, merge with my body, came a calm command in its mind. Kuimo steadied and transformed into boundless light. Xingmang's hand could seal space-time, but it could not entirely contain these lights. The boundless lights shot into the heart of a gigantic shining existence looming in the distance, a vast ball of light containing those very lights. It was the boundless progenitor. "Thank you, boundless progenitor, for saving my life," Kuimo whispered from inside, grateful. The boundless progenitor was one of the top 3 strongest among the Eternal Origin Life Camp's progenitors. Unlike Initial, it theoretically could face complete death and so did not have a seat in the Eternal Land, yet it was highly feared and respected. It was as potent as the Infinite Serpent Ancestor and the Annihilation Ancestor. Among the 3, only the Infinite Serpent Ancestor held a seat in the Eternal Land. Because Boundless Progenitor could be completely killed in theory, it was a ravenous warmonger, always seeking more source world origins to devour to ascend further. Xingmang watched the scene and frowned. The Boundless Progenitor was one of the 9 emperors of the Eternal Origin Life Camp, the 9 highest-ranking progenitors, made up of 4 undying existences and 5 overwhelmingly powerful others. Among them, Boundless, Infinite Serpent, and Annihilation were the top 3. The 8 lords of the Cultivator camp could not put an end to Boundless on their own. Only 2 existences in the entire infinite mixed origin space could even restrain it, and to kill it would require extraordinary cooperation. Hold steady, Initial broadcast. These lords are exploiting our unfamiliarity with their methods to strike back. Once we learn their patterns, we'll have a way to fight them. Be careful, Mo-Man has entered again, Qianyan warned, anxious. What? The progenitors could hardly believe it. Hadn't Mo-Man already burned his main combat incarnation to fight to the death? They did not realize that when Mo-Man, Jin, and Ming Huang burned their main incarnations, each had left behind a weak incarnation, protected and hidden by Lord Xingmang. After the main incarnations detonated, those weak forms were immediately restored to full strength by Luo Feng. Yuan controlled the array formation, while Xingmang maintained space-time. Wulan and Luo Feng bore the brunt of the enemy's strikes and stabilized the formation. The 4 had to cooperate flawlessly to keep the maneuver viable. Lord Naigu had many progenitor bloodline techniques and was a solid all-around fighter, but his desperate measures could not match the sheer ferocity of Mo-Man, Jin, and Ming Huang. When those 3 burned their main combat incarnations without regard for cost, their power became monstrous. Ha ha ha, I'm back again. Mo-Man's voice rolled through them like a thunderclap. The progenitor's situation worsened. These lords were not only powerful and enduring, they could also coordinate and, above all, burn main combat incarnations repeatedly. Even the progenitor's tenacity had limits. This time Mo-Man's form broke into streaks of gray fluctuation that did not disturb space-time, but permeated every progenitor's body, an attack along the primordial fluctuation path, soul fluctuation kill. It wormed into life cores, striving to corrupt their very essence. I'm here too, Lord Jin snarled. Destructive rifts tore open across the domain, sweeping over the already injured ranks. 2 of the most badly wounded progenitors were swallowed whole by those rifts. The others watched in shock and rage. 2 companions had fallen in battle. Chapter 384, Avoid War. Before this war, only 3 Hunyuan ancestors had died in total. Through the crucible of battle, the remaining progenitors had gained experience, and for a long time the Lord's side had made no real progress. But now 2 more progenitors had fallen. Lord Jin's techniques, the artistry of destruction, are indeed superior to mine. Among a cluster of progenitors, a restrained black light shimmered. Inside it stood a shape half-human, half-bird, Annihilation Ancestor, one of the 9 emperors of the Eternal Origin Life Camp and one of its top 3. 6 of the 9 emperors had taken part in this war, 4 undying existences, plus Limitless Ancestor and Annihilation Ancestor. This new lord can quickly restore his companions to peak condition, Annihilation Ancestor said, fixing its gaze on Luo Feng from afar. He is the key. Infinite Serpent, Limitless, Initial, I'll try to deal with this new lord. Annihilation Ancestor's voice echoed in the minds of its three companions. If we cannot break this key point, we will temporarily avoid battle. Agreed. Infinite Serpent Ancestor, Limitless Ancestor, and Initial all answered. The progenitors had many coordinated strategies, and the avoid battle option was one they were loath to adopt. But the situation had become too dangerous. If Annihilation and Ancestor also failed, avoidance would be their only choice. Communication among the progenitors was instantaneous. Attack together, target that new lord. Annihilation Ancestor's command swept through the minds of the other 6 progenitors. These 6 either had 1,000 eyes, were enchanting creatures, or were strange beasts shimmering with starlight. With Annihilation Ancestor leading and the 6 supporting, they struck in coordinated fashion. New Lord, return to Annihilation. An indifferent voice echoed in Luo Feng's soul. As the assault hit, Lord Minghuang ignited her main combat avatar, her body dissolving into terrifying golden lightning. The golden bolts pierced space-time, locking onto the severely wounded progenitors. Once locked, there would be no escape. Boundless light spread and illusions flashed as the progenitors tried every measure to aid their comrades. As long as this new lord is seriously injured, everything can change. Annihilation Ancestor had that premonition. Boom! Luo Feng felt his soul like an enormous, resilient mountain as the enemy's power condensed into a giant hammer and came smashing down. This was a combined strike aimed at both mind and body, from Annihilation Ancestor, Qianyan Ancestor, Starnet Progenitor, and the other 7 progenitors. Luo Feng's soul trembled as an invisible force suffused his body, driving his physical form toward collapse. Annihilation Ancestor and the others, even as his soul shook, Luo Feng remained perfectly clear-headed. He pursued life's ultimate strength. His mixed origin life extinguishment Dao comprised 6 major systems, and the mind consciousness system was a crucial part. This made his soul extraordinarily powerful among lords and even more terrifying to progenitors. He endured the full force attack of Annihilation Ancestor and the rest without harm. 1/10 of the energy from each of his 1.08 billion origins recovered every breath. With such a fearsome regenerative ability, he quickly expelled the foreign forces from his body. We failed. Annihilation Ancestor sighed from afar. It had expected this possibility. Qianyan Ancestor, Starnet Progenitor, and the others were helpless. Collective strikes from the progenitors were usually guided by yuan formations. The domains of multiple lords could interfere, weakening the assault. The yuan formation would rout the blow so that Wulan bore most of it, and Luo Feng a smaller part. But Annihilation Ancestor's 7 mind-focused killing moves could bypass yuan formations and domains to strike directly at Luo Feng. With this technique, the Eternal Origin Life Camp had felled some equally leveled foes before. Yet it was far less effective against the 8 lords of the Cultivator Camp. The lords were undying. Even if they withstood the move, only Lord Naigu and Lord Jin might be affected. The others were unflinching. Their techniques could not lock onto Starlight Lord, nor touch Yuan's soul. Wulan easily withstood the attacks. So did Luo Feng. Lord Minghuang and Lord Moman were both formidable in mind. Once they resisted mentally, their physical injuries stayed minor. In the past, this move had threatened the Lord's side, targeting Lord Naigu and Lord Jin, but with Luo Feng's arrival, the Lord's defenses had comprehensively improved. Avoid battle. Limitless Ancestor's voice resounded in every progenitor's mind. Under Lord Minghuang's furious lightning, Limitless Ancestor transformed into boundless, endless light. The blinding brilliance spread across the area where the progenitors gathered, assimilating many of their bodies. With a whoosh, the boundless light suddenly contracted, shrinking to a single point and then into the interior of a giant sphere. Across the vast space, the other progenitors vanished, only the sphere remained. They avoided battle. The 8 figures watched the giant sphere, without the desire to act. Ha! How exhilarating! Lord Jin laughed. In all the years before, despite all the plots, only 3 of the weakest Hunyuan ancestors died. This time, 3 were slain in such a short span. He felt electrified. So invigorating to unleash forbidden techniques recklessly, to treat burning one's main combat avatar as if it could be used without restraint. Xingmang, did you secure all 3 progenitor corpses? Lord Minghuang asked. Don't worry, no one surpasses me in space-time attainments. The moment you killed them, I seized their bodies and took them to other timelines, Xingmang replied, laughing. Once a progenitor died and its resistance collapsed, its corpse could be taken immediately. Fortunately, we hid the fact of Luo Feng's breakthrough beforehand. It caught these progenitors off guard, and that is why we achieved this result, Yuan said, pleased. In this war, the situation had reversed. The progenitors, who had previously been on the offensive, were now forced to avoid battle. If it had been exposed, given the Eternal Origin Life Camp's attainments and a definite target, they might have deduced far more, sent reinforcements, or retreated, Xingmang added. Luo Feng looked at the distant sphere and asked, "This initial ancestor, can we do nothing against it? Can the 8 of us combine to move it into some dangerous region of the infinite mixed origin space?" "We indeed cannot do anything to it," Yuan nodded. "No force in the entire infinite mixed origin space can move it," Xingmang agreed. Luo Feng had learned that initial ancestor represented the ultimate defense of the infinite mixed origin space, indestructible and immovable. But it moved slowly and attacked clumsily. In most fights, it could be ignored. "Its body is special," Wulan said. "In sheer toughness, it rivals me, but its body has an incredible ability to perfectly dissipate incoming power. Even if I strike at full strength, 99% of the force will be transferred and dissipated," Lord Jin said. "The remaining 1% still has to contend with a toughness comparable to Wu Lan." Luo Feng was astonished. Lord Jin, among the lords, was extraordinarily deadly, yet his power could be dissipated by 99%. In the infinite mixed origin space, other beings who could reduce an attack to 1,000th or 1/10,000th would be considered formidable. "Its position is like a fixed point in space-time, unshakable and immovable," Xingmang said. "Can't move it at all?" Luo Feng sighed. "There's hope only if the force is overwhelmingly strong," Wu Lan replied. "But after the power is transferred and dissipated, only about 1,000th might remain. Naturally, that can't shift it." Luo Feng understood. Lord Minghuang smiled and said, "Brother Luo Feng, you can try. Hack at it as you please. It won't fight back." "Even if it did, it wouldn't matter," Lord Moman added. Among all the progenitors, Initial ranked middle to lower in might. Compared to the lords, it was far inferior. Every lord was comparable to the highest level progenitors. "All right, I'll try." Luo Feng was curious about the strongest defensive existence in the infinite mixed origin space. He turned to the ponderous sphere, feeling the immense profundities of Tao within it, the mysteries of life and matter integrated into one miraculous existence. He extended his hand, and the sky-rending blade appeared. Whoosh! The blade pierced space-time, carrying boundless power, and struck the giant sphere. On impact, Luo Feng felt as if the blade edge hit empty air, no sense of contact. A sliver of power, following the lock of life, forcefully transmitted through. Only a faint sliver of blade light brushed the surface. But that was just 1,000th of the blade's power, and the sphere didn't even register a mark. "Luo Feng, for you to hit it at all is impressive," Xingmang remarked. The giant sphere then issued a deep voice. "The lord who attacked, are you the 8th lord of your cultivator camp? Your camp is fortunate to have produced a new lord during this extermination war." "Initial, will you continue the battle or end the war?" Yuan asked the sphere. "If you continue, we will accompany you." Alongside the giant sphere, 4 avatars manifested: Infinite Serpent Ancestor, Limitless Ancestor, Annihilation Ancestor, and Emberfire Ancestor, the core combatants among the 9 emperors of the Eternal Origin Life Camp. "You really think adding 1 lord will let you win?" Infinite Serpent Ancestor coiled in the void and glared at Luo Feng and the others. "The cultivator camp is our prey. You have no right to resist." "Prey?" Lord Jin laughed. "We lords are undying. You progenitors are our food. We hunt you, make you resources for our cultivation. Let's count. 20 progenitors dead so far, aren't we? And not a single lord lost." "Yes, 20 progenitors died. But because of your threats, we have given birth to 32 new progenitors," Annihilation Ancestor replied coldly. "Those who fell were weak. Those who survived are stronger. Thanks again to Old Alliance leader Old K for the reward." Chapter 385, the most wonderful Yuan Pingchang, usually the gentlest of them all, now fixed the progenitors before him with a cold gaze. "Over the long years, your Skyborn mixed-source life camp has lost 20 progenitors to us. You've lost another 15 in fights with other camps. You've only given birth to 32 new progenitors in total, so your overall numbers have actually fallen. The infinite serpent ancestor and the others' faces shifted. As the largest race in the infinite mixed origin space, their progenitor numbers had indeed slipped after repeated clashes with the cultivator camp. That decline explained why some among their ranks opposed continuing the war. The lords were undying. What was to be gained by endless conflict? Doesn't the existence of the 8 lords prove that individual strength matters more? A mass of crushing pressure called the boundless light argued. Skyborn mixed source life possess infinite lifespans. They should use those lifespans to pursue ultimate power. Emberfire Ancestor added, to pursue the ultimate, one must be willing to go all out. Even if we fail and are wiped out, we would gladly accept it. Infinite Serpent Ancestor and Emberfire Ancestor glanced at the 8 lords. The 2 ancestors had reached the Undying Realm and therefore remained remarkably calm. Source World Origins are the best resources for the Skyborn Mixed Source Life Camp, Infinite Serpent Ancestor said. Even if I no longer need them myself, the camp as a whole does. The infinite race under me needs them too. You occupy 3,600 prosperous world clusters, full of source worlds, Emberfire Ancestor continued. If you're willing to concede and withdraw to 1,200 world clusters, our Skyborn Mixed Source Life Camp will step back and cease hostilities. The 8 lords only returned cold looks, disdainful of any rebuttal. Just you wait, one of them said. The ancestors withdrew into the body of the initial progenitor. The initial progenitor had reached the pinnacle of its path, calmly able to observe the whole infinite mixed origin space, untouched by any force. Still, as kin of the Skyborn Mixed Source Life Camp, it was willing to aid its race. They're calling for reinforcements, Xingmang said. His many avatars had traversed countless future timelines and seen too many outcomes. Even though some in the Skyborn camp oppose fighting us, to save many progenitors and keep their advantage, a powerful force will come to their aid. Luo Feng and the other 7 lords accepted Xingmang's assessment. Those progenitors were hiding in the initial progenitor because they could not safely retreat. Against Lord Xingmang, master of space-time comprehension, their withdrawal would expose fatal flaws. Under the 8 lords' combined blockade, more progenitors would likely die. Hiding inside the initial progenitor and waiting for help was their best course. How many progenitors will come as support? Yuan asked. At least 30 progenitors, Xingmang answered. Luo Feng, Lord Jin, Minghuang, Mo Man, Naigu, Wu Lan, the 6 beside Yuan, shifted. With 30 reinforcement progenitors arriving, they could face well over 100 progenitors together. That kind of power would be terrifying. If the fate of a race is at stake, the 9 emperors will also gather, Xingmang added gravely. We must be prepared. We'll favor defense first, ceding some opportunities to keep our formations stable. Then we'll look for a chance to counterattack, Yuan said. With Luo Feng here, we needn't fear a protracted struggle. At once, Yuan, Lord Jin, Wu Lan, Minghuang, Naigu, Xingmang, Mo Man, and Luo Feng, the 8 lords, fell into formation, surrounding the area where the initial progenitor hid and standing guard. Any lesser progenitor who dared to reveal their true body would be surrounded and slain by the 8 of them. Eternal land. Only beings who had reached the undying level could come here. To have a seat meant standing at the summit. The land was nurtured by the infinite mixed origin space itself. Even a speck of dust from it could suppress a high-level origin life. Its invisible pressure could turn a world-level Hunyuan life to dust. More than 90% of the Skyborn Mixed Source Life Camp's progenitors were not qualified to come here. On this vast, flat expanse stood a single ancient round table, carved with endless secret patterns. 28 seats circled it. 3 were occupied. Distances across the infinite mixed origin space were vast, so its greatest beings met here. The 8th Cultivator Lord, one of the seats held a cloud of gray mist, an eye appearing on its surface to watch the distant battle. The Cultivator camp is special. They all start as weak beings within a source world, cultivate step by step, and eventually grasp the essence of supreme power, reaching a level comparable to ours. A figure in white battle armor observed coldly. They're special. Each of them is very strong. I admire Xing Meng, and I'm good friends with Ming Huang, but Lord Jin is too vile and shameless. In the abyss of destruction, he couldn't best me openly, so he ambushed me while I was fighting. I despise such tactics. The white-armored figure radiated an intense aura of destruction. A winged, feathered being sat nearby, serene, wrapped in warm white feathers, its aura restrained and regular, yet undeniably one of the pinnacle existences. Lord Jin, Lord Mo Man, Lord Naigu, those three are the most despicable from the cultivator camp, the feathered one said. Ha ha, I heard your feathers were plucked clean, the white-armored figure laughed. Kafu Shu, the feathered being roared in fury. My mistake, the white-armored one said, waving it off. He conjured a vision of the feathered creature horribly injured, most feathers gone, blood covering its body. Oh dear, I remembered wrong, he still has many feathers. The feathered creature endured the teasing. He had descendants, unlike the white-armored figure, who had no race or companions and existed in solitude. Collecting jokes about peers was his main pastime. He had reached such strength and could only find amusement in that way. Kafushu, Yu Huang, the gray mist, observed the battlefield. The 8 lords acting together can suppress 73 progenitors, kill 3, and force the remaining 70 to retreat. These cultivator lords are formidable. Their combined power is one of the most potent forces across the infinite mixed origin space, Yu Huang nodded, a touch envious. Among his race, only he could claim a seat in the eternal land. Some ancient beings watching from afar felt unsettled. As the 2 major camps clashed, other camps seized the opportunity to take world clusters, some a handful, some over 100. At first, we thought the Skyborn Mixed Source Life Camp would win easily, occupy most world clusters, and let us share in the spoils. Who expected the situation to reverse? If the Cultivator Camp wins, those 8 lords won't let go easily. 12 forces took advantage of the war to encroach. Does the Cultivator Camp dare fight all 12? Those 12 forces differed in strength. The strongest was the Ice Peak Camp, an alliance formed by 12 eternal land existences. Though their ancestor-level numbers were fewer than the Skyborn camps, their power was terrifying. Most had no racial concerns. They acted without restraint or pity. They cared little about source world origins and instead sought extremely rare resources nurtured across vast territories. From Ice Peak's perspective, occupying over 100 world clusters already showed restraint. If they unleashed full force, they could take many times that. We only took a little over 100 world clusters. What can the Cultivator Camp do? Do they dare go to war with us? Ice Peak's leaders asked without concern. Cultivator Territory, Dark World Group, Origin Continent Source World. Luo Feng stood on a pavilion within Huyang City Lord's mansion. His body had transformed completely. His energy reserve was down to 1% of its total, but that remaining reserve still equaled the main combat avatar of Lord Mo Man, the smallest lord in physique. The Cultivator Camp faces many crises, Luo Feng thought, understanding more now after his breakthrough. Where there are people, there are conflicts. In the infinite mixed origin space, camps and forces clashed constantly. The Skyborn Mixed Source Life Camp was their most hostile enemy, but not the only one. There were many major and minor confrontations. Brother Yuan, it really was hard to come this far from humble beginnings, Luo Feng reflected. The Cultivator Camp had improved greatly thanks to Lord Xing Meng and other lords' emergence. The Cultivator Camp's crises will be resolved, one by one. As a lord with an unbounded lifespan, Luo Feng had the patience to wait and fight across eternity. Every lord brimmed with confidence about the future. Becoming a lord, the most wonderful part. Even after ascending, Luo Feng's source world origin did not resist him. His power easily permeated and controlled it. Once he had full mastery, his home source world felt like another limb of his own body. Now the origin continent source world held no secrets from him. Everything was under his command. That included the river of time that recorded the origin continent. Within that river, countless lives, rising and falling, living or dead, remained brilliantly alive in their past timelines. For those who had perished, their timelines had ended, but Luo Feng could retrieve them from the river of time and allow their timelines to continue, perhaps eternally. Within the scope of his source world, for the life trapped within the cage, Luo Feng could grant true, endless life. Great Axe Sr., he thought, as familiar faces, powerful and weak, appeared before him. He even saw his teacher Zuo Shenki in happier times when he was still God King Pu. All regrets could be mended. This is the most wonderful part of becoming a lord, Luo Feng smiled. Chapter 386, Support. In the Eternal Origin Life Camp, the first Holy Land was the Infinite World, home to the Infinite Great Serpent Clan, with more than 10 ancestor-level Infinite Great Serpents. The second Holy Land was the Giant God World, no less magnificent than the Infinite World. Life forms born there were world-level Hunyuan from birth, and their sizes were among the largest within the Eternal Origin Life Camp. The clan that thrived in the Giant God World was called the Giant God Clan, second only to the Infinite Great Serpent Clan in size, with 10 ancestor-level members. Avatars of the Infinite Serpent Ancestor, Annihilation Ancestor, Emberfire Ancestor, and Limitless Ancestor descended upon the Giant God World with a single thought. Tens of thousands of colossal beings lived in the Giant God World. The smallest were still 2 to 3% the size of a source world. Some of those colossal beings, as big as Deputy Palace Master Xingje, looked toward the four avatars in curiosity. Infinite Serpent Ancestor and the others have arrived, someone murmured. I heard they were in trouble against the Cultivator camp, another said. Now they come to ask for our help. There was a murmur of speculation. The Giant God Clan and the Infinite Clan had long-standing conflicts, but at the moment the most prestigious figure in the Eternal Origin Life Camp was the Infinite Serpent Ancestor. Beyond his raw strength, he was undying and indestructible. The four avatars approached a particular colossal being, an upright giant beast covered in black gold scales, with 2 arms and a pair of enormous wings. Merely sitting there, it was larger than a source world, one of the biggest in the infinite mixed origin space, several times Wulan's size. It was the Giant God Emperor, one of the 9 emperors of the Eternal Origin Life Camp, and the leader of the Giant God Clan. The 3 emperors who had not yet joined the battle were led by him. In a head-to-head contest of power, he was arguably the strongest of the 9 emperors, but his ability to preserve his life was relatively weak. Several beings could threaten him. The cultivator Lord Yuan was especially effective against him, and so the Giant God Emperor's standing in the Eternal Origin Life Camp was lower than the Infinite Serpent Ancestors. Giant God Brother, the avatars greeted as they arrived. I heard you lost? The Giant God Emperor asked with interest. A new lord appeared, the Infinite Serpent Ancestor said. With this newcomer, the 8 lords together are proving very troublesome. We can't win without help. We need you 3 to join us. The Giant God Emperor nodded. 2 terrifying presences manifested beside him. A massive black mist avian whose body was made of condensed calamity, and a huge, rotund beast covered in smooth, ever-shifting multicolored fur, each strand an endless void. They were the Black Tide Ancestor and the Primal Chaos Beast Ancestor. The 4 avatars greeted them. Black Tide and Primal Chaos were also among the 9 emperors. Unlike most, they weren't bound to a single clan and seldom acted, but they had a close relationship with the Giant God Emperor and tacitly considered themselves part of the Eternal Origin Life Camp. We all understand what's at stake, the Infinite Serpent Ancestor said. If we lose this battle to the Cultivator camp after committing all our forces, the deterrent power of the Eternal Origin Life Camp will be greatly diminished. I don't like war, the Giant God Emperor murmured. He preferred to observe the infinite mixed origin space from a distance, letting events play out around him. He liked being a bystander. The resources that should be allocated to the Giant God Clan have never been withheld by me, the Infinite Serpent Ancestor continued. At this critical moment, you refuse to participate? Let them trample over us? Annihilation Ancestor, Limitless Ancestor, and Emberfire Ancestor glanced at the Giant God Emperor. Within the Eternal Origin Life Camp, there were 2 major factions, one centered on the Infinite Serpent Ancestor, the other on the Giant God Emperor. I understand the stakes, the Giant God Emperor said at last. We will take part in this battle, but only this battle. After it, we will withdraw. Black Tide and Primal Chaos nodded in agreement. You have our word, they said. The Infinite Serpent Ancestor nodded. The Cultivator camp has a new lord who can instantly restore his companions to their peak. They've become more troublesome. After this battle, I will take the chance to end the war one way or another. Whether they won or lost, the infinite serpent ancestor planned to end the war. The difference in outcome would change the power balance drastically. A victory would reinforce their prestige, a loss would break it. He had to leverage the prestige of a decisive victory over the 8 lords to prove their continued dominance. How much do you know about this new lord? The primal chaos beast ancestor asked. If we're going to war, we must understand our enemy. A monstrous, many-clawed beast crawled out of space-time. Its claws could grasp timelines themselves. After emerging, it reported, I inspected many past timelines and discovered the details of that new lord, Luo Feng. Luo Feng was born in the Dark World group, Origin Continent Source World. There are obstructions inside that source world, so information is limited. His cultivation period has been extremely short, the multi-clawed beast said. He cultivated for less than 10,000 epochs to reach what the cultivator camp calls the ultimate under the cage, and then in under 2,000 epochs rose from under the cage directly to Lord. From under the cage to Lord in under 2,000 epochs, the assembled ancestors repeated, stunned. Yes, the multi-clawed beast affirmed. There's no record of him becoming world-level Hunyuan beforehand. In fact, he only refined his home source world after joining the battle. Whether or not he's world-level Hunyuan, he rose to lordhood from under the cage in less than 2,000 epochs. Based on my understanding of the cultivator system, his talent and potential surpass those of the previous 7 lords, the giant god emperor said. This is genuinely troubling. The infinite serpent ancestor felt a headache form. They watched helplessly as the cultivator camp grew stronger and now had a newly emergent lord of exceptional potential. The infinite serpent ancestor himself no longer needed to devour source world origins, but his clan did. Those source world origins were their best nourishment. He was not willing to give that up. They're getting stronger, and our eternal origin life camp is strengthening too, Annihilation Ancestor said calmly. It's still uncertain which side will win. Both camps were massive opponents. One side had countless source worlds and a continuous stream of future generations, potential lords among them. The other had an immense Hunyuan space full of skyborn mixed source life, producing new progenitors at a rate that outpaced the rise of lords. Each camp knew the other to be its greatest rival and fought most fiercely for supremacy. For now, this Lord Luo Feng is newly ascended, the giant god emperor mused. He's still green, but if we don't crush the cultivator camp decisively now, when he becomes fully developed, he will be far more troublesome. When do you depart? The infinite serpent ancestor asked. As soon as possible, the giant god emperor replied calmly. Once the progenitors decided to gather, their mobilization was shockingly fast. With the giant god emperor, primal chaos, and black tide leading, plus more than 20 progenitors willing to follow and several more recuperating in the rear, 35 progenitors assembled. I will lead you on the journey, the multi-clawed beast said, and it guided the 35 progenitors as they cut through space-time toward the cultivator territory. I warned you long ago, there's no need to press too hard on the cultivator side. If you pressure them enough, you might force out a strong one progenitor said among themselves. If we conquer all their territories, what then? Freed from territorial concerns, the 7 lords would become relentless. Their hatred would only make them strike back constantly. The infinite serpent ancestor is overconfident, another muttered. He fights for the infinite clan. The fastest way for them to grow is devouring source world origins. Our giant god clan can absorb Hunyuan power more slowly. We don't need to consume source worlds. The progenitors discussed the strategy heatedly. The giant god emperor and his 2 companions were calm. Alone, the giant god emperor had notable weaknesses, but together with primal chaos and black tide, their abilities complemented each other. The 3 were akin to 3 eternal land powers acting together, which qualified them to be the second largest faction in the eternal origin life camp. 35 progenitors have departed, word spread across the infinite mixed origin space. They're led by the giant god emperor. As expected of the eternal origin life camp, mobilizing such terrifying power. At the ancestor level, every life fluctuation was immense. Unless one was skilled in life like Luo Feng and could converge all fluctuations, ancestor-level activity could be sensed clearly. With 35 progenitors acting together, their combined fluctuation could be detected by many forces across the infinite mixed origin space. Only the Cultivator camp and the Ice Peak camp can withstand 35 acting combined, observers noted. Despite many powers across the space, few had the confidence to resist 35 progenitors moving as one. The 8 lords of the Cultivator camp are truly extraordinary. They can suppress 73 progenitors, forcing nearly all of the Eternal Origin Life Camp's progenitors to join the fight, someone commented. If over 100 progenitors assemble, especially with the 9 emperors at the core, even powerful lords might not be able to stop them. Across forces, attention fixed on the looming clash. Within Cultivator territory, the giant spherical initial ancestor floated, containing many progenitors temporarily hidden inside its body, recuperating while they waited for reinforcements. The 8 lords formed a battle array that completely enveloped the area. 35 progenitors have departed, Yuan said, eyes focused on the distant sensation. Luo Feng and the others watched as well. Their gazes could feel the approach of those 35. The giant god emperor and his 2 companions have moved, Yuan added gravely. They're 3 eternal land powerhouses when combined, Starlight Lord said, frowning. If over 100 progenitors gather, especially with the 9 emperors at the core, their overall strength will outstrip ours. I'll outline possible combat scenarios across many future timelines. Luo Feng, Wu Lan, Jin, Moma, Naigu, and Minghuang all felt the pressure. The Cultivator side's coordination was stronger, with Xingmang observing countless future timelines, his space-time domain integrated into the whole battle array, and Yuan's formation harmonizing the Lord's powers. The progenitors' coordination was cruder, but their sheer numbers were overwhelming. When over 100 progenitors assembled, especially with the 9 emperors driving them, their combined might was still terrifying. If we win this battle, our situation will be far easier later, Xingmang said quietly. We must win. Jin stared into the distance too. Luo Feng understood what the lords had concluded from their simulations. He was the critical factor in winning this engagement. He had only recently ascended, and the outside world still knew little about him. How he acted now could decide the outcome of the war. Chapter 387, The Madness of the Ancestors. The 8 lords waited with grim calm. Among the 9 emperors of the Eternal Origin Life Camp, Initial and Mother of Space-Time were counted mainly for their undying, indestructible natures. Their offensive power among the progenitors was middling. The other 7, however, were terrors in battle. They're here. All at once, the 8 lords braced themselves. Across the infinite mixed origin space, countless beings of similar level watched from afar. Suddenly, Progenitor Initial, who had been unnervingly tranquil, erupted with blinding radiance. Infinite light washed out over the field, and the rest of the progenitors, 35 of them, manifested within that glow at the same instant. Those that had been hidden revealed themselves as well. 105 progenitors stood assembled. Aside from a few recent breakthrough progenitors, some who had refused the summons, and those badly wounded, nearly every progenitor had gathered. Led by the 9 emperors, a full 105 of them concentrated here. Annihilate the Cultivator Lords, someone shouted. Destroy them. The Eternal Origin Life Camp had planned for this. The moment their force was complete, they struck without restraint. The highest level techniques of the 105 progenitors, after a simple coordination, poured over the 8 lords with overwhelming force. The lords' domains and Yuan formation resisted with everything they had, but it was only a brief hindrance. The relentless onslaught landed primarily on Wu Lan and Luo Feng. This power, Lord Jin, Lord Moman, Lord Minghuang, and Lord Naigu all changed expression. Against the combined absolute might of over 100 progenitors, unless a lord's life-saving capacity was terrifyingly strong, they could be utterly destroyed. The primary battle avatars of those 4 were nearly powerless to oppose such force. Only Yuan and Xingmang managed to evade. But even evasion had limits. The collective assault pressed down like a mountain. Luo Feng and Wu Lan felt the weight of it crushing them. Ha! How exhilarating! Wu Lan laughed, even as primordial origin matter tore at his body. He stepped forward to intercept powers, taking blows deliberately. His colossal form absorbed part of the barrage, but the progenitors deliberately avoided centering their strikes on him. For every attack Wulan blocked, another half descended on Luo Feng. Fierce, varied pinnacle techniques swept through Luo Feng, eroding defenses and shredding flesh. His protective life energy layer was pierced repeatedly. The 1.08 billion origins frantically fed it. His body split with countless wounds, blood staining him, visibly worse than Wulan's injuries. Yet Luo Feng's physical body was only one portion of his strength. His 1.08 billion origins accounted for tenfold more. Even with a broken body, he could regenerate from nothingness, and the origins repaired him further. His condition remained within tolerable bounds, but the consumption of his body protection energy was steep. In one breath, about 5% of reserves, Luo Feng calculated. Facing 73 progenitors before, he had burned only 1% per breath while inside the formation. Now it was 5 times that. As the onslaught escalated, the damage to him would only rise exponentially. If it climbed to a certain point, even his main avatar could be scattered. They watching from the progenitors' ranks were secretly amazed. Luo Feng's body was clearly less resilient than Wulan's, and his wounds worse, yet he sustained through a peak state of output. "You all should feel the strength of our lords," a voice rang out among the progenitors. Lord Mo Man ignited his primary avatar, and the vast space-time where the progenitors floated shivered into a cascade of musical notes. The whole realm became a song that resounded into every progenitor's core. Invisible assaults struck both body and soul. As a group attack, it was unavoidable. The progenitors could only endure. Those who had been heavily wounded before were driven back into pain. 3 of them worsened immediately. "Haha, this time we must kill a few more progenitors," Lord Jin's cry followed. He poured his power into 13 black spheres that detonated where the progenitors were gathered, obliterating wide swaths of space. Dazzling golden lightning descended thereafter, streaking out to lock onto targets with no escape. "No need to dally," a progenitor voice replied. "Destroy them quickly." While Mo Man, Jin, and Ming Huang unleashed their techniques in succession, the 9 emperors were unshaken. They had studied the Lord's methods and had counters. If defense failed, they'd simply outmuscle the assassination attempts. Some progenitors, together with Mother of Spacetime and Initial, moved to rescue those critically injured. The other 6 mighty emperors marshaled the remaining progenitors into a full-force assault. Wulan! A world-shaking roar rang through the field. The infinite serpent ancestor blurred and expanded, its blurred form swelling by the thousands, then tens of thousands, becoming immeasurably larger than all the progenitors combined. It was limitless in name, able to grow to infinite size, to merge with the void itself and become undying and indestructible, though such a state sacrificed offensive edge. It expanded and engulfed Wulan, then contracted and solidified, its colossal serpent coils constricting. 2 more powers merged inside that coil. Annihilation Ancestor became a black light, winding around half of Wulan. Emberfire Ancestor blazed like a star and wrapped the other half. The 3 ancestors, each masters of binding, combined their efforts. Even Wulan's formidable body could not easily break free. Emberfire had once devoured him for a breath of time. Now, with 3 against him, escape was impossible. "Annihilate Luo Feng," the progenitors cried. 2 progenitors who were gravely injured sheltered within Initial's body, while the infinite serpent and the other 2 held Wulan. That left exactly 100 progenitors to focus their assault on Luo Feng. Their apex techniques braided together and descended. "Space-time maze," Lord Xingmang countered. Among the progenitors, Infinite Serpent's void attainment was highest. It and Xingmang had clashed in secret before. With the Infinite Serpent pinned down to subdue Wulan, it could not fully manipulate the void. Mother of Space-Time lagged behind both in void and time mastery compared to Xingmang. The combined pressure of 100 progenitors shattered Xingmang's space-time maze under sheer might, but it still diverted 3 or 4/10ths of the attack. The remaining force struck the Yuan formation, and after further dampening the impact on Luo Feng, felt roughly 10% greater than before, still within his tolerance. "That Xingmang," the progenitors muttered. With the Infinite Serpent fully occupied, Xingmang's space-time power could be unleashed more freely. A shadowed behemoth strode through the assault and loomed before Luo Feng in a single step. It was gargantuan, several times larger than even Wu Lan, plated in black gold scales, razor-sharp wings flaring. An immense, multifaceted luminous domain shimmered about it, and a spreading black mist crawled at its edges. Giant God Emperor, primal chaos beast ancestor, black tide ancestor. Luo Feng recognized them in an instant. The dazzling, multicolored light was the domain of primal chaos beast ancestor, one of the 9 emperors. Within that domain, Lord Xingmang couldn't stir even a single trace of void power. The domain itself was the ancestor's body, like thick fur across a colossal beast. Outside that, the black mist was the black tide ancestor. Its body turned into an endless tide of calamity. The primal chaos beast domain was absolute suppression of void. The black tide brought cascading calamities. Together, they wrapped Luo Feng in a deadly double-layered domain on top of the giant god emperor's already terrifying physique. In that condition, the giant god emperor had no discernible weakness. It strode forward. Luo Feng slashed, but the blade light vanished within the black tide calamity, then within the primal chaos beast's luminous domain, failing to touch the emperor's body. The giant's arms reached out, wings folded, and the 2 domains swallowed Luo Feng. Every movement cost him, the domains sapping his energy and freedom of motion. Encased by arm and wing, he was utterly embraced. Under 100 progenitors' siege, the Lord's formation was already strained. Against the giant god emperor and his companions, Luo Feng's mobility and evasive options were far less than Xingmang's. As he fought to hold the formation, he couldn't break free. In a single exchange, the 3 ancestors entangled him. Good, the progenitors crowed. We trapped the 2 strongest bodies. Wu Lan and Luo Feng were the 2 linchpins resisting their onslaught. Luo Feng especially had been crucial, able to rapidly restore his comrades to peak state. Previously, the Infinite Serpent, Annihilation, and Emberfire ancestors had only enough strength to restrain one. Only by combining the giant god emperor and others could the progenitors ensure both were held. After subduing Luo Feng, the giant god emperor and its companions immediately retreated to avoid their immense bodies and domains hindering the rest of the siege. They slid back into the progenitor formation. Trap me? Luo Feng's eyes went cold as he was pulled into the mass. Then he bellowed, "Explode for me." In an instant, Luo Feng's physical body dissolved into pure energy, pouring entirely into his 108 billion origins. Those origins had already been charged to full. The flood of his body's energy forced the entire host to contract. They imploded inward and then detonated, an overwhelmingly brilliant, roaring storm of energy that ripped through restraints and obstacles. Boom, 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 boom. Chapter 388, Truce, wishing you good luck on the college entrance examination. With the help of his 2 companions, the giant god emperor had initially restrained Luo Feng. Then, without warning, Luo Feng vanished and reappeared as 1.08 billion primal origins. Those primal origins clustered like a field of brilliant stars and formed a formation, one of Luo Feng's 3 forbidden techniques, Source Great Destruction. He had developed it to exploit his particular strengths. Like the other forbidden arts, it required a suitable environment to be most effective, and its cost was devastatingly high. Boom, the formation triggered a chain reaction. In an instant, it became an energy storm capable of obliterating everything. Space-time itself was shredded and reverted to raw energy under its overwhelming force. The abdominal region of the giant god emperor, closest to the 1.08 billion primal origins, was torn open at once. His immense body split apart. "Impossible!" the giant god emperor roared, fury and shock in his voice. "Dodge!" The dual domains of the primal chaos beast ancestor and the black tide ancestor were slammed by the same boundless energy. Their combined domains were formidable, but before absolute destructive power, even they could not fully hold. The portions of their domains nearest the blast were annihilated and turned into energy, which the storm absorbed, intensifying it further. A colossal disk of energy, dazzling like jade, erupted from the giant god emperor's abdomen. It blasted through his body, cracked open the dual domains, and surged outward in all directions with terrifying force. When that power exceeded a certain threshold, it produced a special effect. The surrounding space-time vaporized, and a wide area was transmuted into a blinding orb of light. Dozens of progenitors nearby had no time to react and were swallowed by the energy storm. How could this be? The giant god emperor gasped, his anger mingled with fear. The dual domains from his two companions had protected his lower body and part of his torso. Even at the epicenter of the explosion, they had kept 2/3 of his body intact, allowing the giant god emperor to fuse himself back together. If not for them, he would have been utterly annihilated. Primal Chaos Beast Ancestor stared incredulously at the devastation. That Luo Feng actually has such a move. My body lost 1/10 of its energy. Black Tide Ancestor, whose domain sat on the outer periphery, had suffered similarly. All three staggered from the blow, suddenly wary and watchful. The storm's shockwaves swept through the cluster of nearby progenitors. Their life-preserving capabilities were far inferior to the combined power of the giant god emperor and his two allies. Even at slightly greater distances, the impact was catastrophic. 26 progenitors were heavily wounded. "Annihilate," someone ordered from the cultivator camp. In response, 26 dazzling bolts of golden lightning fell. Minghuang Lord did not hesitate to burn her main combat avatar. The golden strikes were unavoidable, and they crashed into the 26 wounded progenitors. Screams filled the battlefield. Some called for help, but the lightning struck without mercy. 5 of the most grievously injured progenitors could not protect their life cores. They cracked and died on the spot. The other 21 were left even more shattered. Boundless light swept in and began rescuing the survivors, but the bodies of the 5 dead progenitors were silently carried away by space-time. 5 progenitors dead? Murmurs of disbelief ran through the gathered progenitors. They had been hardened by long wars and losses before, but those had come through prolonged conflict and by the attrition of the weak. This, sudden deaths caused by proximity to a lord's forbidden technique, felt arbitrary and intolerable. Anger surged. "Die," some shouted. "Cultivator lords, go to hell." The remaining 70-odd progenitors, furious and panicked, launched a ferocious attack. Without Wu Lan and Luo Feng holding formation, how could the lords resist? Over 70 progenitors struck with full force, and the giant god emperor and his 2 companions counterattacked in kind. Space-time maze. Starlight Lord tried to teleport away some of the power, but Infinite Serpent Ancestor seized control of the void, temporarily setting aside his suppression of Wu Lan and allowing Emberfire Ancestor and Annihilation Ancestor to hold Starlight back. The void was locked. The space-time maze could not form. All the highest-level powers collided and swept across the field. "Go!" Starlight Lord burned a portion of his main combat avatar, and with Infinite Serpent Ancestor's control of the void, forced 30% of the incoming force to be teleported away. The Yuan formation resisted further, reducing the strike. Naigu Lord, however, had altered his form into a gigantic 9-headed beast and actively devoured and absorbed the rest. His body shattered under the strain, but he recovered quickly. Mastering multiple progenitor bloodlines in one body gave Naigu a comprehensive toolkit for survival. Even so, with over 70 progenitors attacking, and despite several layers of weakening, nearly half the power still fell. The residual force, Luo Feng's great destruction storm that had traveled far, had by then weakened, but it suddenly contracted, almost in a blink, condensing within the cultivator lord formation into a figure. A black-clothed, black-haired man standing massive and resolute before Naigu Lord, taking the brunt of the remaining onslaught. "Naigu, leave it to me," Luo Feng said. The shattered Naigu looked at him and could not hide a smile. In one breath, I was almost blown apart. All 8 lords recognized each other's capabilities. They knew what Source Great Destruction had done. It had unleashed everything, yet Luo Feng's power could partially reconstitute from nothingness. Every fragment of his energy held potent spirituality. After the destructive outburst, it gathered again. "I still have 20% left," Luo Feng sensed. After such a complete release, he could recover about 20%. His body, though reformed, was frail. The newly condensed primal origins were weak. In that state, absorption of energy was greatly slowed, only 1/10 of his usual recovery speed. The others had no way of knowing that. They only saw him standing there, still facing down the residual power. "He recovered," murmurs rippled among the progenitors. "He became a storm, yet he still regained form?" A debate flared among the attackers. Some argued to press on. Others pointed out Luo Feng's remaining reserves were small, and that even if they won now, the lords could ultimately return when healed. Worse, many were appalled that 5 progenitors had died simply by being unlucky and too close to the explosion. The tide of opinion turned. More and more progenitors opposed continuing the war. Infinite Serpent Ancestor sensed the shift. With over 30 progenitors now against continued fighting, he could not risk pushing onward. He spoke into the minds of his allies and followers. "We misjudged the new Lord Luo Feng. We suffered a loss today. Let us withdraw, study him fully, and act only when we are certain. Ceasefire." At his words, Infinite Serpent Ancestor, Annihilation Ancestor, and Emberfire Ancestor released their suppression. Wulan recovered his freedom and stepped back into the formation. The progenitors were transported away, carried by the mother of spacetime's countless claws, retreating through the void. "The ceasefire is temporary," Yuan said as the enemy withdrew. "Collectively, the progenitors still have greater numbers and strength." Moman Lord looked toward the departing fleet. "Earlier, when Jin, Minghuang, and I burned our main avatars to attack, we had some success. This time they were prepared, so our strike was less effective. It was Luo Feng's forbidden move that created our opening." Luo Feng allowed his companions to recover first, while he slowly rebuilt his energy from that 20% reserve. He felt his recovery speed was only a tenth of his peak, but it would suffice in time. Starlight observed, absorbing source world origins and facing the threat of death both push progenitors to evolve. After this battle, some of them will break through. He was right. Conflict bred growth. The progenitors' mastery of highest level power was not their limit. With time and evolution, they might approach the ranks of the ancestors themselves in certain directions. But Ming Huang smiled confidently. "Even if they grow, they won't surpass our cultivator side." Yuan nodded. "Let's return to initial land, study the progenitors' bodies thoroughly. For now, this war is over." "We held against the combined might of over 100 progenitors," Wulan said. "Facing the other camps will be easier now. At least we can rest for a while," Jin laughed. "Brother Luo Feng, you promised we'd explore the mysterious lands after the war. Our territory still has many world clusters held by others. Reclaim those first, then you two can go exploring," Yuan replied. "All right, I'm not in a hurry," Jin said with a grin. Luo Feng asked, "Where do you want to go?" "Abyss of Destruction," Jin answered. "I've been there before, but I've lacked a strong companion. I'll send you detailed intelligence right away." The 8 lords chatted as they returned to initial land. The battle had ended, at least for now. End of this volume. Fangchi will rest tomorrow and resume updates the day after. The college entrance exam has begun. Fangchi wishes all students sitting it a smooth exam and great success. 12 years of hard work will pay off. Go, young people. Chapter 389, Hunyuan Dao Distribution Territory Initial Land, Council Hall. In the center of the hall sat a black round table, translucent and crystalline from top to bottom, carved from the largest dark realm crystal ever uncovered in the infinite mixed origin space. Its value was incalculable, on par with several ancestor-level corpses. Only the cultivator camp could wield such a rare treasure. In weaker factions, merely possessing it would invite annihilation. Though the cultivator camp had long been suppressed by the dominant eternal origin life camp, its strength was universally respected. 8 chairs ringed the table, each hewn from the same dark realm crystal. Whoosh! 8 figures descended and took their seats. Yuan, Jin, Wulan, Minghuang, Naigu, Xingmang, Moman, and Luo Feng. These 8 were the highest existences in the cultivator camp. Their decisions shaped the fate of countless cultivators. Seated, Luo Feng immediately felt a space-time formation activating. The table was the formation's core, linked to the entire space-time net. Instantly, the 3,600 world clusters within the net came into his awareness. Even fragments of ruined clusters and timelines registered. The space-time net preserved past timelines and could be probed everywhere. As he sat, intact and shattered world clusters, innumerable source worlds and ordinary worlds all reflected in his mind. "The council hall finally has an extra seat," Yuan said, smiling. "It was no easy matter. After so many years, we welcome a new lord." "It's about time our camp produced a lord," Jin added with feeling. "Mastering the Tao is far harder than producing progenitors." Starlight Lord nodded. Progenitors were easier to give rise to. Several had been born during the war, and after digesting their gains, they would improve further. Let's first divide the spoils of the war, Yuan presided. We killed 11 ancestors in this conflict, an unprecedented feat. Haha, before this we had only killed 14 ancestors across countless years, Wulan exclaimed. This war alone took down 11. The tide has turned, the Starlight Lord smiled. Thanks to Luo Feng, Naigu said with emotion, we were retreating steadily, but Luo Feng's breakout greatly bolstered our strength. His arrival allowed us to slay 8 ancestors in short order. After Luo Feng became a lord and rejoined the battle, 3 ancestors fell quickly. Later, when Luo Feng was captured and separated from his main force, his detonations of origin power, an enormous, catastrophic burst, indirectly led to the deaths of 5 more ancestors. Thanks to Ming Huang as well, Luo Feng returned. While the Starlight Lord, the infinite serpent ancestor, and the mother of space-time restrained one another, it was difficult for any one of them to land a decisive blow. Ming Huang's thunder attacks were concentrated, blazingly fast, and always lethal. Many of the ancestors' deaths were her doing. Those progenitors had exhausted themselves resisting you. I only delivered the finishing blows, Ming Huang said with a smile. First, distribution of spoils, Yuan continued. Each lord will receive 10% of the 11 ancestors' corpses. The remainder remains in the initial land for the common benefit of the entire cultivator camp. Although each lord's contributions differed, the camp's rules were strict. Participation in battle entitled you to an equal share. Among the 8, only Naigu had an urgent need for ancestor corpse materials. The others were focused on comprehending the Tao and did not require corpse remains as desperately. These 11 ancestors carried many treasures as well, Yuan added. As usual, each lord will take 10%. The rest is shared by the camp. The lords casually chose their portions. Progenitors had to fight with their true bodies. Clones without life cores were too weak, less than 30% of full strength, and useless in a war of this scale. Xingmang's example made that clear. A 30% reduction in reserves greatly diminished his combat effectiveness. When Luo Feng had been at his peak energy reserves, his recovery was terrifying, close combat formidable, and he could unleash forbidden moves. Once his reserves declined, he weakened in every way. It was only because many progenitors were internally divided and reluctant to go all out that they failed to overwhelm Luo Feng's main battle clone when it had only 20% of its reserves. Even had they won then, the 8 lords could recover and counterattack, which is why many progenitors opposed the war. The spoils distribution is complete, Yuan said. Next item. With the birth of a new lord, our camp must redemarcate territory and reassign subordinates, Yuan said, looking at the assembled lords. First, the Dark World Group, Luo Feng's home, will be his absolute territory. Second, each lord must shoulder border defense. You will take responsibility for some world clusters along the borders. A miniature model of the 3,600 world clusters appeared above the table, and Yuan began the allocation. Each lord's absolute territory formed a starting point, spreading toward the border. Each territory took on a twisted, fish-like shape as their influence stretched outward. I need the Xinjiang World Cluster, Ming Huang said, sweeping her hand to claim 3 more clusters while relinquishing others. The 7 existing lords had invested vast effort across the domain, and certain clusters held special meaning for them, so they negotiated small adjustments. Luo Feng, who had not invested in other clusters, accepted the minor compromises. No objections? Yuan asked the 7, nodding. Good. If there are no objections, the division is settled. With territories decided, the world-level Hunyuan life and high-level origin life under our command must be reassigned, Yuan continued. High-level origin life within a territory fall under the Lord's authority. As for world-level Hunyuan, those who are disciples of a given lord belong to that lord. Those without master-disciple ties will be allocated according to territorial divisions. The other lords had no objections. Many world-level Hunyuan had previously received cultivation from a lord before breaking out of the cage. About 1/3 had become true disciples. As a newly promoted lord, Luo Feng had taken no world-level Hunyuan as disciples. Luo Feng inspected the final allocation plan. He had 23 world-level Hunyuan life and roughly 10.25 million high-level origin life under his command. The tally also included 20 captured world-level Hunyuan life and over 8 billion captured high-level origin life, a large increase in captives taken by the cultivator camp during the war. Luo Feng, you have a relatively small number of world-level Hunyuan life, Yuan said with a smile. You can cultivate those little ones inside the cage more actively. If you nurture them into world-level Hunyuan disciples, they will naturally fall under your command. Luo Feng understood. The other 7 lords had invested tremendous effort over the years. I'll cultivate them slowly, he said. Any objections to this plan? Yuan asked. No objections, the 7 lords answered. Then let us proceed to the third item, Yuan said. With a new lord, we must decide how the cultivator camp will raise future generations in this new era. The 8 lords would jointly set cultivation policy. First, we reclaim the vast resources of all world clusters, Mo Man said bluntly. Previously, because many clusters could fall entirely, we released large quantities of resources for exchange to give more beings a chance to break out of the cage. Now that the war is over, that policy must change. Many clusters had been devastated and many lives annihilated. The liberal exchanges had been designed to give hope. Now, with territories secure, the camp could not sustain such free distribution any longer. Letting such free exchange continue is unsustainable, Naigu agreed. We must plan for the long term. While the lords debated in the council hall, the territorial and cultivator division plans were transmitted to every world-level Hunyuan life and high-level origin life across the initial land. Countless cultivators received the notices simultaneously. Tianlongke and his 2 companions were among them. The message read, Guangyu, Taoist Chifeng, Tianlongke, along with 20 other world-level Hunyuan life, 23 in total. Please proceed to the Tianyuehai Grotto Heaven and await summons from Lord Luo Feng. Tianlongke stared at the message. Guangyu, a horned man, leaped with excitement. I never imagined that while we worried about the war, the cultivator camp would birth a new lord. The news was tightly guarded. Lord Luo Feng already fought in the war, and the victory has been secured. The victory was only announced once it was completely certain, Taoist Chifeng said, equally thrilled. Let's hurry to the Tianyuehai Grotto Heaven and await Lord Luo Feng's summons. Let's go, Guangyu urged, looking at his companions. Brother Tianlang, don't dawdle. This is our first meeting with Lord Luo Feng. We mustn't show the slightest disrespect. Oh, still somewhat dazed, Tianlongke nodded and set off with them toward the Tianyuehai Grotto Heaven. Only now did Tianlongke understand why Lord Luo Feng had not summoned him after his breakout. Today, June 8th, was also Lord Luo Feng's birthday. Chapter 390, Hunyuan Sword Dao Differences. Inside the council hall, the lords were embroiled in a fierce debate over how to cultivate the next generation of practitioners. We've already reclaimed many key resources and raised the exchange threshold, Lord Wu Lan said. Jin, do you really think we should keep cutting back resources? If we go on like this, there won't be enough. How could there be too few? Jin shook his head. When Yuan was weak, the entire cultivator camp didn't even have a single lord. Back then, there were no good resources at all. Yuan could only comprehend the primal chaos Tao of his origin source world. Didn't he still become a lord? When I was weak, the camp had only Brother Yuan as a lord, and resources were extremely scarce. I still made it through. Look at Luo Feng, Jin went on. He rose from the bottom of a weak source world. Resources there were negligible. He endured countless hardships to reach the origin continent, and he was still poor. The origin continent was then dominated by 2 great ancient kingdoms that nearly monopolized all the resources. Even after leaving his source world for the 9 Rivers Sacred World, Luo Feng was still poor. Couldn't even afford full Hunyuan bloodline materials, only fragments of low-level Hunyuan life, Jin continued. What does that show? That scarcity can actually squeeze out stronger potential, Jin said. If we hand out too many resources, these juniors won't cherish them. Luo Feng smiled and nodded. Brother Jin knows me well. I agree. We should accustom the juniors to a poverty cultivation method. If the resources are scarce and they can still reach the God King apex and become half Hunyuan, then they're worth cultivating. With scarce conditions, Reaching the God King apex and becoming half Hunyuan is far harder than today, Luo Feng added. Those who survive that test, once given top-tier resources, may be able to break out of the cage. He thought of his own path, always squeezing potential from whatever little he had. My path proves something, Yuan added. After Luo Feng entered the God Emperor stage, he had to grope forward in the dark, with no inheritance to guide him. The inheritances we leave behind can actually be harmful, Wulan agreed. The more powerful the progenitor, the greater their influence. Their inheritances can prevent juniors from forging their own paths. I believe inheritances that would break the cage shouldn't be disseminated at all, Yuan said. Let the juniors explore on their own. Agreed. One by one, the lords nodded. Their own detours and hard-won experience convinced them of one lesson. To become a lord, one must explore alone. As for resources, let's follow Luo Feng's example for this era. Yuan chuckled. Let the juniors grow under scarcity. Once they prove outstanding, then provide appropriate resources. Agreed. They voted in succession. By tradition, cultivation practices for a new era would largely follow the breakthrough experience of the newly risen lord. Brother Luo Feng also came from a source world, Mo Man said with feeling. To this day, all 8 lords came from source worlds. That suggests the billions of worlds we created, though full of life, have inherent flaws in talent and aptitude. The worlds we manufactured and a true source world are fundamentally different, Yuan said. As a master of the primal chaos Tao, he had long tried and failed to create a source world. Future resources should be biased towards source worlds, Wulan urged. After all, only source worlds can potentially produce new lords. I think the existence of catastrophe-type cultivators should be prevented within our territory, Luo Feng said. I mean cultivators who treat every living being of an entire source world as mere resources. They may achieve something, but they cut off the hope of every other life in that world. Luo Feng could accept grudges, enmities, and the law of the jungle. He could not accept those who were themselves disasters, those who slaughtered or repeatedly harvested the living beings of whole worlds across countless reincarnation eras. Such cultivators should not exist. Brother Luo Feng, I am a catastrophe-type cultivator, Jin said, looking at him. In a way, so am I, Naigu added calmly. Jin explained, I was born into the destruction demon race. The source world inclined me toward destruction. Only by sinking into destruction and mastering it did I finally become a lord. For my path, all living beings are naturally resources. Even in the future, I will rely on the corpses of ancestors as resources, Naigu said without apology. Every path has its meaning, Jin said. Catastrophe-type cultivators have their place. Pure destruction cannot give birth to life, Luo Feng countered. Even you have comprehended aspects of life in your path. Jin's primal destruction Tao actually contained a slice of life, otherwise a life form could not have been formed. I must first sink into destruction before I can transcend and control it, Jin said. Every cultivator's path is different. No path should be restricted. Any could give birth to a lord. Ming Huang scowled. A path of monstrous sin that destroys countless lives should not exist. What is sin? Naigu asked. In this limitless primal space, there is only strength and weakness. Sin is merely your inner judgment. Ming Huang, you are too narrow-minded. We are all life, Luo Feng said. We should pity the weak. We all began in weakness. The law of the jungle. The weak die because they are weak, Naigu said coolly. Yuan rubbed his temples. The lords had long had conflicts. Jin, Naigu, and Mo Man formed one faction, though Mo Man was less extreme. Ming Huang and Wu Lan formed another faction, Ming Huang's more benevolent stance winning Wu Lan's admiration. Yuan tried to be all-encompassing, while Xing Mong remained an observer. It seems Ming Huang and Luo Feng are aligned now, Yuan said with some helplessness. Ming Huang had once been outnumbered, but with Luo Feng's joining, the balance between the factions shifted. The Eternal Origin Life Camp won't pity the weak, Jin retorted. Luo Feng, you cultivate the Mixed Origin Life Extinguishment Tao. Don't you know the weak will ultimately be eliminated? Destruction can be a form of life protection, Luo Feng answered. Both sides had deeply studied life and destruction. Their methods were simply different. Harsh environments make them grow stronger, Mo Man added. Brother Luo Feng, you faced catastrophic existences while growing up. First the Golden Horn Beast, then the World Beast. Those catastrophe-type cultivators provide other cultivators with powerful motivation. The catastrophe-type cultivators we need to guard against are those who annihilate every living being in an entire source world, Luo Feng insisted. Against such foes, the weak have no chance. All right, Yuan finally cut in. Stop arguing and stick to the old rules. First, any lord may implement their ideas within their own absolute territory. In broader regions of the cultivator territory, we will continue a free-range policy. Second, if persuasion fails, then strength will decide. If anyone can defeat the combined forces of the other lords, we will follow their decree. If your strength isn't enough, then endure it. At Yuan's words, the lords were silent. To single-handedly defeat the combined forces of the other lords, no one in the entire infinite mixed origin space could do that. Luo Feng sighed inwardly. He had once believed that becoming a lord would let him remake the rules entirely. Now he realized how limited his power was. Even within their own circle, major decisions were made collectively by the 8 lords. Next item, Yuan continued. By tradition, the birth of a new lord requires a grand celebration. The birth of a lord was special. In the eternal origin life camp, the rise of a few ancestors didn't merit anything grand. Only an undying existence, one with a seat in the eternal land, was celebrated. Every lord needed the attention of the entire infinite mixed origin space, and inevitably took a seat in the eternal land, so a celebration was due. Reclaim the territory first, Luo Feng said. Many of our 3,600 world clusters haven't been reclaimed yet. Reclaim the land, then hold the celebration. Good, let's do it your way, Yuan agreed. Our most urgent task is reclaiming the territory. The 8 lords debated allocations and tasks, disagreeing privately but standing united publicly. Even Jin and Nai Gu, hard and uncompromising by nature, knew how much the cultivator camp had helped them. A complete plan was soon formed, with each lord assigned responsibilities. Initial territory, Tianyuahai Grotto Heaven. Outside the Grotto Heaven, high-level origin life bustled with excitement, awaiting an audience with Lord Luo Feng. The last time I saw him, he was only a half Hunyuan life, the thin old man said with obvious excitement. In less than 2,000 eras, he reached the pinnacle and even ended the war. He was surrounded by companions, high-level origin life from the Dark World Group. The Dark World Group had once been inconspicuous. Now it was Luo Feng's home, his absolute territory. Our Dark World Group has become the Lord's absolute territory. We'll be 10, maybe 100 times more prosperous. We, his fellow townsmen, will be highly valued. Outside an absolute territory, the free-range policy still held, but the absolute territory itself would receive a lord's full attention and flourish. Over 10 million high-level origin life and 23 world-level Hunyuan life waited outside the Grotto Heaven. Tianlong Ke was among those 23. Brother Tianlong, you're the lord's fellow townsman. As the only world-level Hunyuan born in the Dark World Group, you'll surely be highly valued, a companion told him with a grin. The other world-level Hunyuan looked at Tianlong Ke with envy. Sharing a hometown with the Lord often brought special favor. Tianlong Ke didn't go to pay respects the last time the Lord came to the initial land, the world-level Hunyuan called Candlelight observed. Suddenly, an invisible fluctuation spread out. The 23 world-level Hunyuan and the 10 million-plus high-level origin life fell silent, struck by their own insignificance in the presence of a terrifying aura. A man in black clothes with black hair descended from the void. Tianlong Ke looked up. Only now did he truly see his lord, Luo Feng, for the first time. As a world-level Hunyuan born in the absolute territory, he would serve under Lord Luo Feng for countless years. Greetings, Lord. All 13 world-level Hunyuan bowed deeply. Greetings, Lord, came the chorus of respect from the millions of high-level origin life. Standing before the Lord's true form, they finally understood the chasm that separated them from him. Chapter 391, Hunyuan Sword Dao Appointment. Luo Feng looked out over the 23 world-level Hunyuan lives arrayed before him and the dense sea of more than 10 million high-level origin lives behind them. In the coming years, the vast territory under his command would depend on these subordinates. The cultivator territory was enormous. As their power grew, that territory would only expand. with countless source worlds, billions of ordinary worlds, and naturally formed treasure and mineral deposits. The cultivator camp found its high-level origin lives stretched thin. They could barely govern even with the help of loyal skyborn mixed source lives. The lords would never bother with such daily details. "This is our first assembly," Luo Feng said with a smile, meeting the eyes of his subordinates. "From now on, for any important matters, you may submit reports directly to me." The assembled high-level origin lives stirred with excitement. They memorized the image of the black-clothed, black-haired man standing before them. This was the great lord they would now follow. Among the world-level Hunyuan lives stood Jie and Yi Feia, formerly town defenders of the dark sacred world, now naturally part of Luo Feng's retinue. "It hasn't even been 2,000 epochs, and he's already a lord," Jie murmured to Yi Feia. It still felt unreal. The last time they had seen Luo Feng, he had been only a half-primordial origin fusion Dao cultivator. Now his appearance had not changed, but his aura was boundless and vast. Every word he spoke carried the weight of Dao. The mixed origin life extinguishment Dao itself was part of Luo Feng's life, an incomprehensible pressure. Even the 100 progenitors of the Skyborn Mixed Source Life Camp had failed to defeat the 8 lords. It showed how fearsome a single lord could be. "Your duties will change," Luo Feng continued. "Detailed assignments will be issued soon. The 23 world-level Hunyuan lives in Moyu Qingyan are to remain. The other high-level origin lives may depart for now." "Yes." Thousands of high-level origin lives bowed respectfully and withdrew, grateful simply to have seen a lord's combat avatar. Many glanced back at Moyu Qingyan with envy. He was one of the most influential high-level origin lives from the Dark World group, and the Lord had singled him out to stay. "Follow me inside," Luo Feng said. They moved deeper into the grotto heaven. The 23 world-level Hunyuan lives and the lone high-level origin life, Moyu Qingyan, entered together. The thin old man felt nervous and excited. Had the Lord truly intended to rely on him? He was only a high-level origin life. The world-level Hunyuan lives exchanged looks, and after a quick inquiry, learned more about Moyu Qingyan's background in Tianyue High Grotto Heaven. Luo Feng sat by a lake at ease and addressed them. "The war between our cultivator camp and the Eternal Origin Life Camp has just ended. Some territories remain occupied and must be reclaimed. Each of you will bear responsibility for guarding and managing them." "Yes," the 23 world-level Hunyuan lives and Moyu Qingyan replied in unison. With manpower tight, their combat avatars would be mobilized for defense. "I have already named 4 chief commanders and 19 town defender generals," Luo Feng said. At his level, he arranged the structure in a few breaths, building on the previous provincial framework of the cultivator territory. Each high-level origin life's task was determined. Ji and Yi Feia, with whom he had ties, received significant responsibilities. Tianlang Kei's assignment caught his attention. As a newly advanced world-level Hunyuan life, his strength ranked lower among his peers. He was listed among the 19 town defender generals, a far lower authority than the 4 chief commanders. "I also need 3 territory inspectors to oversee the borders," Luo Feng added. The 23 world-level Hunyuan lives stiffened. A territory inspector governed hundreds of world clusters on the Lord's behalf. The benefits and influence were immense. Tianlang Kei felt a flicker of hope. He and the Lord came from the same world cluster. He had not gone to visit the Lord last time, an omission that cost him face, but still he dared to hope. "My subordinate territory is temporarily divided into 3 regions," Luo Feng announced. "The inspector for Region 1 will be Duststone. Region 2 will be overseen by Candlelight. Region 3's inspector will be Guangyu." Duststone, a bald, unassuming figure with a restrained aura, was secretly the strongest among Luo Feng's subordinates. Once a fusion Dao cultivator, he had later refined his bloodline to reach world-level Hunyuan, choosing 2 opposite bloodlines and exploiting both to devastating effect. At that stage, he was among the top 3 in the cultivator camp. Humble and well-connected, he had served the lords faithfully for aeons. Luo Feng chose him without hesitation. Candlelight, a thick-set figure whose body was covered in dark purple scales, was the weakest of the 3 inspectors at late world-level Hunyuan, but he had previously served as an inspector and proven himself capable. Guangyu, a horned man at perfected world-level Hunyuan, ranked second to Duststone in strength among Luo Feng's men. All three had shown exceptional competence. I was chosen, Candlelight breathed, relieved. Being selected by Yuan in the past hadn't guaranteed Luo Feng's choice. He understood now that Luo Feng valued ability over raw power. To a lord, an early stage or a perfected world-level Hunyuan life mattered little if they could do the job. Tianlang Ke felt disappointment but accepted it. When the lord had been trapped in the cage, over 10,000 high-level origin lives from their homeworld had come to pay respects. He alone had not gone. It was a glaring slight. Luo Feng's decision made sense. Tianlang Ke has talent, but his arrogance makes him unsuitable to manage hundreds of world clusters, Luo Feng thought. He had observed Tianlang Ke's contempt for those weaker than himself and knew an inspector needed compassion for the weak. Inspectors would govern dozens of high-level origin lives and millions of lesser beings. Someone who disdainfully ignored the weak could not be trusted with that responsibility. Mo Yu Qingyan, Luo Feng said, turning to the lone high-level origin life. Yes, Lord, Mo Yu Qingyan replied, his voice trembling with honor. To be so trusted by the Lord, he would gladly die in battle for him. The Dark World Group is my absolute territory, Luo Feng declared. It must be properly developed. You will lead the high-level origin lives there and take charge of the detailed construction and governance. My subordinate will do his utmost, Mo Yu Qingyan said, eager and grateful. Good. Luo Feng smiled and nodded, confident in Mo Yu Qingyan's organizational abilities. In my subordinate territory, 93 world clusters remain occupied, Luo Feng went on. 65 have been taken by the Eternal Origin Life Camp. Our lords will reclaim those quickly. The other 28 are being encroached on by the Blood Crane territory and the Omino faction. Duststone, you will go to the Blood Crane territory and demand the immediate return of the occupied world clusters. If they refuse, withdraw for now, Luo Feng instructed. Yes, Duststone replied. Guangyu, you will go to Omino and issue the same demand. If they refuse, do not waste time arguing. Stand down and report back. I will handle the next steps. How to reclaim the occupied territories had already been planned by the 8 lords. The progenitors were not willing to continue long wars over those clusters. The 8 lords could retake them when they chose. The Ice Peak camp, which held over 100 world clusters, would be addressed last, with all 8 lords cooperating. 11 other factions would be given the chance to withdraw voluntarily. If they declined, war would follow. The Cultivator camp faced too many enemies to fight every battle to the bitter end. Offering withdrawal was pragmatic. Not all 11 held seats in the Eternal Land, but lack of a seat did not mean weakness. Some powerful factions had lost seats in the past, yet remained formidable. Both Blood Crane and Aomino had enough strength to dare taking advantage of the post-war confusion. They would be dealt with carefully. Cultivator Territory, Dark World Group, Origin Continent Source World. Is this the Origin Continent? Shu Xin stood high above Huyang City and looked down at the bustle below. After Luo Feng had taken control of their homeworld's source world, Shu Xin had become something like the world's darling, untouchable, immune to harm, even able to draw on a wisp of the source world's primordial origin power. Luo Feng, what realm have you reached? Shu Xin asked, disbelief in her eyes. He had just told her much and lifted the constraints of some supreme rule. She now understood hidden truths. It's considered the highest level among cultivators. A lord, Luo Feng said. A lord? Shu Xin repeated. According to what he had explained, even the God Emperor realm had once been bound by the cage. Only by breaking out of it could one rise through high-level origin life, world-level Hunyuan life, and finally to lord. That Luo Feng had already reached lordhood felt unreal. Luo Feng willed Morosa to appear. The world beast materialized and was even more astonished upon seeing Shu Xin. He knew the mistress had been weak and should not be able to survive unassisted in the Origin Continent's environment. Now the aura she carried seemed capable of crushing him. Morosa greets both masters. The beast bowed respectfully. Luo Feng glanced at him. As a world beast, he had once been fated to perish when the source world decayed, but under Luo Feng's control of the source world, that doom no longer applied. Even if Morosa died, Luo Feng could revive him. In the homeworld source world, I can now revive any life that was once trapped in the cage, Luo Feng said. So we need to finalize a revival list. Xu and Morosa stared. Revive? Luo Feng already had a framework in mind. He would create one list himself. His wife Luo Ping, Luo Hai, and other closest relatives would have the right to create a revival list representing his family. The origin ancestor, the primordial Chaos City Lord, Hong, the Thunder God, Zhen Yan, and others would compile a list representing the human forces in the primordial universe. Morosa, Master Di Chu, Master Zuo Shanke, and their allies would form another list. Di Qing, Di Chu, the Emperor Consort, Mo Yu Qingyan, Emperor Chu Yu, and others would serve in an advisory capacity. The future origin continent source world needed a balance among these three parties. Xu and Morosa were awed by the scope of it all. Luo Feng smiled slightly. The new alliance leader, Mo Yu Qingyan, would be rewarded for his loyalty and his role in rebuilding the Dark World group. Chapter 392, The Hermit is Alive. After being revived, will everyone gain eternal life? Xu asked. Yes, Luo Feng nodded. What about limits? How many can be revived? Xu pressed. For me, there's no limit, Luo Feng said with a smile. Xu heart tightened. As Luo Feng's wife and the manager of many affairs in the Milky Way Holy Land universe, she understood the consequences that eternal life after revival with no limit could bring. We must set a threshold for revival, she said. Otherwise, the number of revived lives will explode and seriously disrupt order. Over time, they'll multiply, and their descendants will magnify the problem. Eternal life after revival was a blessing, but if mishandled, it could become a catastrophe. Don't worry about disrupting order, Luo Feng replied calmly. For the revival list of those from the primordial universe, I'll create a new primordial universe just for them. They'll live there under the favor of the rules, and they will possess eternal life. But their cultivation will still have to progress step by step from planetary level to astral rank. If someone can cultivate into a void true god and return to the origin continent through reincarnation, that will be by their own merit. Xu brightened. A new primordial universe would avoid many problems. Among the revived might be people with special status, some even owing Luo Feng favors. In that case, the list can be expanded. Even those innocent beings who died in the Golden Horn Beast catastrophe could be revived, she said. Even reviving all of them would be no more than the population of a single planet, and they would be sequestered in a new primordial universe. But we still need to screen the list carefully, Xu added. Those who are extremely evil or who betrayed humanity should be disqualified. Don't rush. First decide on a mature plan, Luo Feng said. If a revived person dies again, will they be gone? Yes, Luo Feng nodded. I can grant another chance at revival, but the threshold must be raised significantly. Xu agreed. This was a decision of monumental consequence. Even within the Luo family alone, those who had died with merit or sacrificed for the family and humanity numbered many. Morosa, I'll have my teacher Di Chu and Zuo Shanke work with you to manage the revival list for beings of the origin continent, Luo Feng said. Reviving anyone in the origin continent will consume far greater resources than reviving someone in a primordial universe. The list here needs more careful consideration. Understood, Morosa replied obediently. I'll go find Luo Ping first, Xu added. With a single step, she crossed vast reaches of space and time, heading for the primordial universe region. With the ability to wield a trace of the source world origin's power, she could move like a world messenger. Within the origin continent's source world, even a god emperor could not match her. Luo Feng watched her go with a smile. His son Luo Ping was the actual manager of the Luo family. Then Luo Feng stepped away as well. Morosa remained thoughtful. Luo Feng had told his wife everything, but had told no one else, not even Morosa. All Morosa knew was that his master had become astonishingly powerful enough to elevate the mistress's strength to terrifying levels and to revive life within the cage. Had Luo Feng become the master of the source world? Morosa wondered. Over the years, he had some idea what lay beyond the cage. Luo Feng's own revival list was personal, those who had shown him kindness as he rose from weakness. He intended to give revival opportunities to anyone who had treated him well and to their most cherished relatives. The Firehammer Squad, the teachers who taught him, comrades from the wilderness, companions who had perished in the golden-horned beast catastrophe. These names were never forgotten. For those who had aided him, he would not only revive them, but also provide resources to smooth their cultivation paths. In a quiet little city on the Origin continent, Zuo Shanqi lived in seclusion, forging alone. Flames leapt and painted his face with light as he stared at them. Forging and cultivation let him forget much. "Teacher," a voice called. Zuo Shanqi paused, turned, and saw the black-clothed, black-haired young man standing in the cave dwelling. "Luo Feng." Zuo Shanqi set down his tools and hurried out. "Why do you come to see your teacher all of a sudden?" "I came with good news," Luo Feng said simply. "What news?" Zuo Shanqi asked, smiling but inwardly calm. "This disciple has reached a very high realm," Luo Feng said. "Now, all life within the Origin Continent source world, so long as they haven't left the cage, any life that has ever existed in history, I can revive." Zuo Shanqi's mind went blank. All could be revived? All life that has ever been born? Zuo Shanqi repeated. "Yes," Luo Feng nodded, "including your relatives and friends. Any one of them can be revived." An emotion unlike any other rushed through Zuo Shanqi: ecstasy, disbelief, a stunned joy. He looked at Luo Feng and saw the truth in his disciple's expression. The impossible was real. Luo Feng could truly do it. "How many can be revived?" Zuo Shanqi asked, voice trembling. 10? 20? "Teacher, you can compile a list of 10,000, Luo Feng said. "Once the list is confirmed, I can revive them immediately." Luo Feng knew Zuo Shanqi's past. For him, there were indeed thousands of important people. 10,000 slots would more than cover them. Zuo Shanqi's eyes filled with tears. He had been consumed by revenge after the fall of Jin Kingdom, and had thought he'd lost all else. He had never imagined that the disciple he met in the primordial universe would not only help him achieve revenge, but would bring back his dearest dead. Luo Feng felt it too. Before killing the Lord of Shi Country, Zuo Shanqi had been hollowed out by hatred. Afterward, he had seemed to lose heart. Until this moment, suddenly life and warmth surged through him, and his spirit was rekindled. His teacher had come alive again, and the disciple was happier than anything to see it. Here is the list. As a god king, Zuo Shanqi finalized the roster in a few breaths. Luo Feng glanced at the 10,000 names, each connected to a life in the source world's river of time. He understood every bond and every past karma between them and his teacher. They are revived. With a single thought, Luo Feng drew those 10,000 figures from the past timeline into the present. Normally, the source world's rules would push back against such interference and erase revival attempts in an ownerless state. But the rules now operated around Luo Feng's will, and there was no backlash. Zuo Shanqi watched, stunned, as 10,000 faces appeared in the cave. Former teachers, fellow disciples, lifelong friends, and the beloved who had haunted his dreams. He could barely breathe. Had she truly returned? The revived were bewildered. Most had died in the fall of Jin Kingdom. Others had perished even earlier. Their memories were frozen at the moment of annihilation. What's happening? Where am I? I'm not dead? Unable to contain himself any longer, Zuo Shanqi strode forward and embraced his senior sister. Luo Feng smiled and then slipped away. This was not the time to intrude on the reunion of teacher and gone but returned friends and family. Near the border of the cultivator territory, two inspectors, Duststone and Guang Yu, were carrying out Lord Luo Feng's orders to meet with the Blood Crane territory and the Almino forces respectively. "The Almino have fully retreated?" Guang Yu asked in surprise. He had checked the 12 world clusters formerly occupied by Almino. They had indeed withdrawn entirely. They'd looted some resources from the region, but had not seriously damaged the many source worlds and myriad worlds. "The Almino are slippery," Guang Yu said, shaking his head. "They run at the first sign of trouble. Once the war between the two camps ended, they withdrew completely." Almino had once been ranked among the top 3 in the infinite mixed origin space. Though their power had declined, the remnants were still hard to deal with. Those survivors had powerful life-saving techniques and were cautious to the point of flight. "I'll report to Lord Luo Feng at once," Guang Yu said, pleased with the news. Duststone, meanwhile, ran into trouble with the Blood Crane territory. Their forces were haughty and overbearing. "You, just a junior, dare speak to me?" came a condescending voice across vast time and space. Tell your lord to come see me himself." Duststone's avatar trembled with fury. "Even the eternal origin life camp ultimately lost to us. You, a small blood crane territory, should be grateful my lord allows you to retreat. You're ungrateful? I will report everything truthfully to my lord. You, a world-level Hunyuan, dare to be presumptuous before me." A cold snort echoed. Duststone's avatar shuddered and then turned to dust. As the figure disintegrated, Duststone glared at a faint illusion lingering in the distance. "What can your cultivator lord do to me?" The illusion hissed without fear. He would not give up territory on a mere command. Was there such a good thing as reclaiming land with a word? Not for him. Thanks again to Old Alliance leader Maubin for the reward. The illusion added darkly. Chapter 390, Great Axe. Welcome to the new era. Yanfeng and Thunder burst out of their cultivation seclusion the moment they sensed the karmic thread. They cut across the spatial currents straight to Huyang City, heading for Morosa. Luo Feng actually became a lord? Both of them were shaken, their emotions raw. Moments earlier, they had watched a host of high-level origin lives descend upon the dark sacred world. With Almino at the forefront, those high-level origin lives had proclaimed that the entire Dark World group now belonged absolutely to the newly risen Lord Luo Feng. Hearing so little was enough to send Yanfeng and Thunder into a frenzy. Their avatars in their home source world immediately came to visit Morosa's cave mansion. "Lord, the highest existence in the infinite mixed origin space," they bowed, reverent. "Great, invincible, omnipotent," Thunder added, awed. The last time they had been summoned by Luo Feng, he had already been a half-primordial, origin-fused Dao cultivator. Yanfeng and Thunder had been proud then. They had thought perhaps Luo Feng might be freed from the cage. They had never expected him to reach this height. Countless source worlds still awaited the guidance left by Senior Yuan. In the future, many younger generations across surrounding world clusters would be welcomed and guided by Luo Feng. "The origin continent source world is the Lord's hometown," Yanfeng said. "The entire Dark World group is the Lord's territory. How could the two of us be qualified to set up kingdoms? How could we claim such vast domains?" Once they understood Luo Feng's actual status, they immediately realized the truth. They had little real interest in founding kingdoms. Ancient kingdoms had always been merely a means to secure resources. Now, with Lord Luo Feng's ascent, real opportunity lay in serving him. They arrived at the entrance to Morosa's cave mansion by following the karmic trace. Morosa opened the door himself and greeted them with a cool, polite bow. "Why would ancestors of the two great ancient kingdoms come to see me?" he asked, composed. Yanfeng of the Shuma greets brother Morosa. Yanfeng and Thunder bowed respectfully, properly deferential. Morosa smiled faintly. "You two already know?" "Of course," Thunder said excitedly. A large group of high-level origin lives descended onto the dark sacred world and publicly declared it. "Everything belongs to Lord Luo Feng. As members of the Lord's home source world, we are honored. We wish to offer our ancient kingdoms and simply serve the Lord." Morosa's expression shifted. His master had not told him everything. He had guessed Luo Feng would be a lord, but this was beyond expectation. From what Morosa understood, ancestor level corresponded to the highest skyborn mixed source life, the lord level among cultivators. Senior Yuan occupied such heights. Now Luo Feng had reached it too. "It won't be long before Master transforms the entire origin continent," Morosa said quietly. "If you don't offer your kingdoms willingly, those two great ancient kingdoms will also vanish." "We understand," Yanfeng and Thunder replied. "I can't promise you much," Morosa said, "but I can point you toward a path." He named a name that pivoted everything. "Emperor Chu is Master's teacher. His status is extraordinary. If Emperor Chu is willing to support you, your fortunes will change." Morosa explained the three factions under his master's influence. First, the Luo family and Earthlings faction, obvious and central. Second, the Primordial Universe Human faction, which included the Origin Ancestor, the Primordial Chaos City Lord, Zhen Yan, Great Axe, and others. Luo Feng's teacher belonged here. Third, the Origin Continent faction centered on Morosa, Emperor Chu, and Zuo Shanqi. The ancestors of the two great ancient kingdoms could only hope to link to Emperor Chu. Morosa added, "Even Emperor Chu Yu, Di Qing, the imperial consort, and Di Chu are very close to Master." Yanfeng bristled inwardly. So many of Luo Feng's juniors mattered more to him than Yan Feng himself. He had underestimated Luo Feng in the early days and had not kept up. By the time he realized, Luo Feng no longer needed them. Thunder was angry in a deeper way. "They're all from the Yanfeng ancient kingdom," he said. The Thunder ancient country had no one close to Luo Feng. Morosa finished and stood. "I've said what needed saying. Take care." Without Emperor Chu's introductions, Morosa might never have had a chance to meet Yan Feng and Thunder. Among Luo Feng's three great factions, they were not even in the sub-core. Meanwhile, in the origin continent source world, nested within the limitless universe sea, Luo Feng peered toward the deepest reaches of the 3,000 primordial universes. Rise. With the power of a single thought, new primordial universes began to come into being inside the original spacetime of the 3,000. 10,000 sprang into existence. They began to evolve. Luo Feng guided only one of them closely, the one nearest the Milky Way Holy Land universe. This particular primordial universe was designated as the Resurrection Habitat. The Luo family and the primordial universe humans had already finalized many names for revival. On the origin continent side, Morosa, Emperor Chu, and Zuo Shanqi were only beginning to prepare. Begin resurrection. Luo Feng dragged entire galaxies out of the river of time to populate the chosen primordial universe. It was the Milky Way, the solar system, and that blue planet, Earth, again. Countless beings were resurrected, fallen gods of war, warlords, warriors, and their kin. Earthlings from Luo Feng's era had a very low resurrection threshold. So long as they hadn't committed grave crimes, they were brought back. Billions awoke on that blue planet. Luo Feng even restored close relatives of those he cared about, members of the Firehammer Squad, former heroes, and those lost during the Great Nirvana. Beings who had died at different times returned to life in the same era, grandfathers, fathers, sons. Sometimes the son looked oldest because the grandfather had died younger, and so on. On other planets, resurrection was more selective. Outside of Luo Feng's era Earthlings, thresholds were higher. Ordinary Luo family members were not necessarily restored. Among the primordial universe humans, only the most brilliant geniuses, outstanding heroes, and pillar-like figures and their cherished relations were brought back. A burly figure appeared in the starry dome, gripping a great axe. He looked around, perplexed. "Didn't I die?" he murmured. "This seems like a primordial universe." Great Axe examined the galaxies and the rules active here. They resembled his home universe. Yet there were differences. No virtual universe, many dead planets. He remembered his soul had been annihilated, complete death. Those titled Universe Strongest shouldn't be resurrectable. With a thought, Great Axe tore through the universe membrane with his axe and pushed outward. From the distance, he stared in astonishment. Beyond the primordial universe he had left were dozens, then scores of vast primordial universes, the Milky Way Holy Land universe among them. Even from a distance, the sheer size of each made them visible. "The range I can see holds 28 primordial universes," he muttered, bewildered. This was not the world he had known. Familiar figures flew toward him. The Origin Ancestor, the Primordial Chaos City Lord, Peng Gong, Darkness, Huangjian, Longxing, Hong. Some were mere wisps of avatar-like divine power, already far stronger than he. "Great Axe," Primordial Chaos City Lord greeted him with a bright smile. "Welcome to the new era." Luo Feng's hands worked in another place. A source world without a master evolved by instinct and wasted energy. He reshaped the origin continent, letting its land expand outward into the universe sea. Boundless energy poured in and transformed it into vast territory. The universe sea's energy grew thin as a result. In the end, the origin continent expanded 100-fold. 99% of the universe sea became an energy wasteland. Only enough energy remained to sustain 100,000 primordial universes. Energy must be used where it's needed, Luo Feng told himself, satisfied as he completed the continent's remaking. The source world origin's energy was immense, greater even than Wulan's reserves. Wulan's body was nearly the size of a source world with incredibly dense energy and indestructible matter. A smaller source world had ordinary matter and lower energy density. Over 99% of the energy resided within the origin, untouched when a source world was destroyed and reborn. Luo Feng maintained 100-fold the origin continent and 100,000 primordial universes, still a light burden compared to the total reserves. That vast reserve was saved to nurture life. With a master, a source world can nurture 100 times more lives than a masterless one, he mused. A report interrupted him. Lord Bloodcrane Territory refuses to return the occupied land. Their attitude was hostile. They destroyed my avatar. Duststone projected the whole process to Luo Feng. Luo Feng's brow tightened. The historically dominant Almino force in his territory had retreated obediently, but the younger Bloodcrane Territory had been aggressive and presumptuous. He had expected the Eternal Origin Life Camp and the Ice Peak Camp to be real competitors in the limitless primal space. Bloodcrane Territory did not belong in that caliber. I want to see how capable Bloodcrane Territory truly is. With that, Luo Feng's main combat avatar shot out of his home source world and tore toward the border. Chapter 394, Shadow Lord of the Bloodcrane Territory. The space-time of the infinite mixed origin space was fragile in comparison to Luo Feng. With the highest grade creation and destruction power, he easily tore open a shuttle passage. He left the origin continent's source world at blistering speed and in an instant had flown clear out of the entire Dark World group. A world cluster was an area densely packed with source worlds, a prosperous zone where skyborne mixed source life forms were common. Between clusters, however, space was bleak and empty. Beyond a few odd environments, hardly any life could be found. The 3,600 world clusters had been chosen by the cultivator lords as the regions with the most source worlds and the closest proximity. My travel speed is fast compared to most progenitors, but against Xingmang, I'm still slow, Luo Feng thought. He remembered traveling with Xingmang, who seemed to stride across a map and transcend space-time itself. His own speed felt paltry by comparison. Bloodcrane Territory was tricky. Luo Feng thought about his destination as he flew. Bloodcrane Territory was a relatively small power in the infinite mixed origin space, born from a strange, fertile land. That strange origin had produced many beings. The three strongest called themselves the Blood Lord, the Crane Lord, and the Shadow Lord, each at the ancestor level. The rest were world-level Hunyuan or lower. The infinite mixed origin space has produced many ancient beings who don't consider themselves part of the heavenly origin camp, Luo Feng reflected. Undying existences were especially independent, transcendent, and unwilling to be dragged into the heavenly origin camp's disputes. There were oddities like the absolute sphere called Initial and the absolute cube called Devil Ruins. Their forms were bizarre. Initial had anyway aligned itself with the skyborn mixed source and became one of the 9 emperors, but Devil Ruins refused to get involved. Many clans were nurtured by mysterious lands. Blood Crane Territory raised the Blood Crane clan. Yujie raised the Yujie clan, which included the undying Yu Huang. Giant God World raised the Giant God clan. Infinite World raised the Infinite Great Serpent clan. Their strengths varied, but in essence, they were similar. Some joined the Heavenly Origin camp, others did not. The Infinite Great Serpent clan fed on Source World Origin, an existential threat to cultivators, and so it became one of the 2 great holy lands of the Heavenly Origin camp, the other being the Giant God clan. Giant God World didn't care about Source World Origin, but needed other resources. Relying only on absorbing Hunyuan power made growth slow. If all those mysterious powers had been forced into the Heavenly Origin camp, infighting would likely have broken out long ago. The Giant God clan disliked conflict and tolerated the Infinite Great Serpent clan. But would other Undying be willing to bow to the Infinite Serpent ancestor? After more than 10 days, Luo Feng reached the border of the Cultivator territory. He tracked the Shadow Lord's location by sensing life directly. Among the Blood Crane clan, the Blood Lord was low-key and rarely appeared. The Crane Lord was relatively peaceful. Only the Shadow Lord was overbearing and aggressive. It was this Shadow Lord and some of his kin who had been encroaching on the Cultivator territory. Luo Feng stopped in a vast void and fixed his gaze. He had already locked on to the Shadow Lord's position by life aura. The Shadow Lord was merged into the surrounding space, occupying an enormous area. "So, Lord Luo Feng has arrived," a voice spread through the void. "You 8 cultivator lords claim a full 3,600 world clusters. Don't you think that's greedy? I've only taken 16. Isn't that nothing? Shadow Lord of Blood Crane territory, you're bold, Luo Feng replied. When the cultivator side nearly lost the war, forces like the Ice Peak camp had taken the chance to seize extra-world clusters. After the war, most weak forces retreated, but a few refused, and they had backing. The voice came from everywhere at once. I'm helping you, it said. You took too much territory, so the Heavenly Origin camp attacked. If you'd taken less, you wouldn't have stirred up so much trouble. Luo Feng's gaze chilled. The opponent's power permeated the surrounding space. With a thought, Luo Feng centered his will and unleashed a vast Shengmi domain that spread outward, crushing space-time and pulverizing hidden phantasms. The scattered phantoms were forced to converge into a single massive figure in the distance, a towering apparition with blood-colored eyes fixed on Luo Feng. I told you to retreat before, but you didn't, Luo Feng said coolly. You only have one path now. Return everything you looted from the cultivator territory, pay triple compensation, and promise never to trespass on the cultivator territory again. Return all the spoils, pay triple. The apparition laughed oddly. I've always been the one to encroach. I've never been at a disadvantage. Lord Luo Feng, you make me most unpleasant, the Shadow Lord rumbled. 16 world clusters are not enough. I want 32, or I will make the cultivator territory my target forever, raiding you without cease. The Shadow Lord's voice echoed through the void. Let's see what you 8 cultivator lords can do to me. His blood-colored eyes were ferocious. Although the 3 lords of Blood Crane territory had not reached the undying level, they still possessed methods of life preservation. The Shadow Lord was overbearing precisely because he trusted those methods. Until now, he had bullied weaker forces. Now he attacked the cultivator camp. Luo Feng's expression hardened. Boom, centered on him, billions of saber lights erupted at once, guided by his life sensing. The countless blades streaked through space and struck the Shadow Lord's form. In the great clash between the 2 great camps, ordinary progenitors had little impact. Even many techniques from cultivator lords were dampened by the combined domains and powers. But this was one-on-one. Luo Feng's creation and destruction integrated techniques, though not the most powerful among lords, were precise and followed the life aura. Each saber light struck to annihilate life components. The Shadow Lord felt his body being cut and dissolved by countless blades. What kind of technique is this? There's nowhere to dodge, the Shadow Lord muttered, unsettled. Even though his highest shadow powers let him merge with space-time and all things, Luo Feng's endless saber lights hunted and eradicated his life components. There was no escape. So weak. Newly a lord, but hardened by previous intense battles, found the Shadow Lord's power unimpressive. Combine, the Shadow Lord cried, drawing together the many fragments of his power. If he was to survive, he had to unify his life force into a single, stronger core. Luo Feng locked onto him instantly. A brilliant saber flash answered, and a devastating strike followed the Shadow Lord's life aura straight to his chest. Threads of saber light pierced through his attempts to flee. Luo Feng's blow annihilated that body of the Shadow Lord, leaving behind only some treasures and scattered items. No life core, Luo Feng frowned. It was expected. Many ancestor-level beings who could not become undying devised other means of survival. They didn't carry their life core with their roaming avatar, instead hiding it in a location almost impossible to find. That meant an avatar acting outside might have only 30% of the original power, but 30% of an ancestor's strength still swept aside anything below ancestor level. The 3 lords of Blood Crane territory all hid their life cores deep within their homeland. Nobody had ever found them. From afar, a wisp of thought descended and reconstituted a phantom avatar, the Shadow Lord reborn in spectral form. Luo Feng, he snarled, return my treasures and I'll give you face. I won't come to the cultivator territory again. You want me to hand over the spoils? Luo Feng said. He had already tucked the plunder away. Most of it came from the cultivator territory. You're dreaming, the Shadow Lord spat. I won't give them back. I'll come back and pick your lands again and again until I take everything. I've heard that to this day, no one has found your life cores hidden within Blood Crane territory, Luo Feng said, looking at the avatar. I want to try. Just you? the Shadow Lord scoffed. He was confident in his own power and in the mysterious strength of Blood Crane territory. If you dare, come, he sneered, and his phantom dispersed. Luo Feng knew defeating an avatar meant little. The Shadow Lord could nurture another. The way to truly threaten him was to kill him where he was born. I want to see what is so miraculous about Blood Crane territory, Luo Feng thought. He tore open a space-time passage and immediately began to fly out of the cultivator territory, heading for the distant, mysterious homeland of the Blood Crane territory. Chapter 392, The Mysterious Land. Blood Crane territory. The Blood Crane territory lay extremely far from the cultivator territory. It took a full 100 days from the border to finally reach that mysterious land. Finally here. Following his perception of the Shadow Lord and using Xing Mang's recorded space-time route map as a reference, Luo Feng had still arrived with relative ease. In the infinite mixed origin space, most mysterious lands are difficult to find. Some are famous, others obscure, and each contains different kinds of power. The most famous, of course, was the Eternal Land. The Eternal Land had already extended an invitation to Luo Feng, and he had a place there. But with the cultivator territory not yet fully recovered, and with no celebration held for his ascension to Lord, he was in no hurry to go. The Blood Crane territory is a less renowned mysterious land. It's only produced 3 ancestor-level existences, Luo Feng observed as he took in the place before him. Before his eyes lay a vast, limitless blood sea, with countless presences vaguely hidden within it, all watching Luo Feng. A sense of familiarity rose in him. In the primordial universe, he'd once had a Yuhai clone that specialized in transforming into a blood sea. Even after coming to the origin continent, turning into a blood sea had been a common tactic. Seeing this land's blood sea felt almost like meeting an old friend. Since becoming a lord, I no longer need to transform into a blood sea, he thought. In weaker times, he had struggled to control his power perfectly, hence the need for blood sea forms or blood sea formations. After achieving perfect control, both his body and any blood sea form were equally under his command and did not enhance his strength. Still, this limitless blood sea was far greater than his personal blood sea form. Even sensing it from outside, Luo Feng felt it alive, slowly flowing and radiating an intense threat. Luo Feng, a voice boomed from the depths of the blood sea. Since you've come to the Blood Crane territory, do you dare enter? Are you afraid? Afraid? Luo Feng chuckled inwardly. With his mixed origin life extinguishment Dao attainment, he instantly perceived every being hidden within the territory. 3 ancestor-level existences, over 500 world-level Hunyuan, and over 30 billion high-level origin life. At this moment, the 3 ancestors and those hundreds of Hunyuan were all aware of the outside world and were staring at the lone lord who had arrived. Your 3 weak ancestors of the Blood Crane territory can frighten me? Luo Feng scoffed. If you're not afraid, then come in. Another angry voice rang. We 3 weak ancestors want to see just how strong you, the Cultivator Lord, can be, a third hoarse voice added. The other 2 lords of the Blood Crane territory, though rarely active beyond their home, would not tolerate being challenged in their own domain. Luo Feng smiled. With a boom, he plunged into the limitless blood sea. Immediately upon entering, he assessed the sea's special nature. This blood sea is formed by the perfect combination of 3 highest-level powers, he realized. It coincides with the 3 major lineage factions of the Blood Crane territory. The beings born in the Blood Crane territory specialized mainly in the 3 directions of life, undying, and shadow. The strongest embodiments of those lines were the Blood Lord, Crane Lord, and Shadow Lord. The combined blood sea therefore carried the 3 traits, life, undying, and shadow, making it far tougher and more pervasive than a simple blood sea. Its life-preserving capabilities surpassed even Wu Lan's. If anyone mastered these 3 highest-level powers, their life-saving ability might even outclass the mysterious power called Initial, which had achieved the ultimate in defense but could still be trapped. The shadow characteristic here was ubiquitous. Mastering even one highest-level power is ancestor level, Luo Feng mused. I've never heard of an ancestor mastering 3. Even among the cultivator lords, only Xing Mang had mastered 2 highest-level paths. Under Xing Mang's 2 paths, his life-preserving ability was among the strongest in the infinite mixed origin space. impossible to trap. In the infinite mixed origin space, source worlds are born from multiple great paths combined as an origin. Mysterious lands, however, contain several highest-level powers as their core, giving each wondrous, unique attributes. The infinite world could reflect any part of the mixed origin space. The abyss of destruction birthed powerful destructive weapons. Source worlds have an origin. Mysterious lands also have a core. With his high attainment in life, Luo Feng traced the power of the limitless blood sea and faintly perceived its source. He decided, first, deal with the Shadow Lord. Luo Feng flew through the blood sea, analyzing its characteristics and probing its hidden mysteries while heading full speed toward the Shadow Lord. The Blood Crane territory's environment exerted pressure on any outsider, but as Luo Feng passed the sea, parted naturally around him and caused only minor obstruction. He can influence the Blood Sea because of his life-based methods, the Blood Lord commented. I said back then there was no need to provoke the Cultivator camp. We must avoid the 3 strongest camps in the infinite mixed origin space. But Shadow, you insisted, the Crane Lord complained. Didn't you use the resources I plundered? The Shadow Lord retorted. I supported you plundering weaker forces, but not provoking the Cultivator camp, the Crane Lord countered. All right, Luo Feng is coming to kill us. Let's unite against the enemy first, the Blood Lord said. I'll deal with this Luo Feng. I refuse to believe that in the Blood Crane territory, he can do anything to me. The Shadow Lord took the initiative and attacked. The Blood Lord and Crane Lord hesitated because any ancestor-level being fighting with their true body is terrifying. With their life core inside their body, they can unleash their full might, far exceeding their power without a life core. Many progenitors didn't participate directly in wars, and if they did, it was with their true, life core-bearing bodies. Without a life core, they were a hindrance. Luo Feng ignored the thousands watching and the lesser world-level and high-level Hunyuan who kept their distance. They recognized him as a Cultivator Lord and dared not provoke him. Some of them had heard of the Cultivator Lord's battles. They knew these lords were among the most fearsome existences in the infinite mixed origin space. Boom! Luo Feng shot forward. He felt a vast aura rapidly approaching, much stronger than the Shadow Lord clone he'd encountered before in the Cultivator territory. A colossal phantom materialized, a body like an amalgamation of countless shadows, a distorted behemoth with a pair of blood-red eyes fixed on him. Luo Feng! The Shadow Lord's true body growled, and his aura roiled the blood sea into boundless waves. Born in the Blood Crane territory and having mastered the Shadow highest level power, he could mobilize the sea's force. If we were outside, even with my true body, I'd be weaker than you. But this is my home. Here you cannot defeat me. Luo Feng looked him over and said coolly, Just you? Why don't all 3 of you lords of the Blood Crane territory come together? Arrogant! The Shadow Lord erupted in rage. His phantom and the surrounding blood sea merged, and the vast sea surged, crushing forward. Luo Feng stood his ground. His Shengmi domain resisted the blood sea. The blood sea tried to plow through, but it met Luo Feng's protective energy layer, an energy layer supplied by 1.08 billion origins. How is this possible? The Shadow Lord, at an advantage in his home terrain, had doubled force, yet he could not break Luo Feng's protective layer. Observers beyond limitless space-time only saw Luo Feng as exceptionally resilient. They could not perceive how much the protective layer was absorbing. Is that all? Luo Feng said softly. Extinguish. His body erupted with limitless power. Guided by his life perception, he locked onto the enemy, infiltrated, eroded, and annihilated, his attacks streaming like threads, blade lights, and mist, endless and overwhelming. The Shadow Lord's life-saving ability was formidable, but he found Luo Feng's attacks hard to expel. To dispel one portion of Luo Feng's power, he had to expend 3 or 4 times the energy. Luo Feng's power never declines. He remains at his peak. He helped his companions recover under encirclement by the Eternal Origin Life Camp. In energy recovery, he may be one of the best in the entire infinite mixed origin space. Even in the Blood Crane territory, I can't outlast him, the Shadow Lord realized. Continuing to deplete each other would mean death for him. Kill. Shadow ubiquitous, existing both outside and within, began tearing at Luo Feng from inside. Yet every part of Luo Feng's body was flawless and powerful. The Shadow Lord's attacks from within inflicted only slight, fleeting injuries that vanished almost as soon as they appeared. Under a shadow fusion, space-time itself seemed to become part of the Shadow Lord's body. It tore open and clawed at Luo Feng from all directions. Still, Luo Feng remained unbroken. His core, the 1.08 billion origins, was the most abundant, powerful, and stable source of his body's energy. The power of shadow is indeed troublesome, Luo Feng admitted. He reached out and a blade appeared in his hand. Chapter 396, Where is he flying to? Luo Feng stood motionless, the sky-rending blade in his hand exploding into dazzling streaks of light. Each streak of blade light carried 1/10,000th of his total energy reserves. In an instant, he unleashed hundreds of strikes, then kept going, wave after wave of blade light. His energy recovery perfectly kept pace with the consumption. Shadow Lord's heart trembled. He could be omnipresent, but right now every part of Luo Feng's surroundings was filled with those terrifying blade lights. They contained the power of creation and destruction, and their force made him quake. Hundreds of dense streaks crisscrossed heaven and earth and instantly annihilated the surrounding limitless blood sea. With me as the center, all space-time, all things, without distinction, will be completely destroyed. Luo Feng stood at the center. The area around him had been reduced to boiling eddies of energy. Even space-time was beginning to heal itself. This Shadow Lord is really good at hiding. Luo Feng's gaze swept the area and locked onto a distant point. For Shadow Lord, wherever there was a shadow, that was his domain. Wherever there was matter, a corresponding shadow existed. He could appear at extremely distant locations in an instant. Even though Luo Feng had just destroyed a wide swath, it had only inflicted minor injuries on Shadow Lord. Can't face him head-on. Just a slight attempt earlier, and I got hurt. Shadow Lord confirmed one thing. Against this domineering, powerful Luo Feng, he could only hide. Seek and destroy. Luo Feng swung his blade again, but this time the blade light was dark and gentle. It was restrained, following the fluctuations of life aura, piercing space-time barriers and the limitless blood sea's defenses, relentlessly tracking every trace of Shadow Lord's life force so that every strike would land. To guarantee a hit, the power of each strike had to be greatly reduced, at most 100,000th of Luo Feng's energy reserves. If I unleash full power, I can deal tremendous damage, but against someone like Shadow Lord who dodges, I can't even touch him, Luo Feng thought. If I lock onto life aura to guarantee hits, each strike becomes much weaker. Ming Huang, for instance, could achieve guaranteed hits with a full-force killing move from her blazing main combat avatar. Her speed was already impressive. The Hunyuan Dao of the blade I'm currently comprehending still integrates creation and destruction, with destruction as the primary focus, Luo Feng reflected. The path I'm pursuing must make guaranteed hit a priority. Only then will I pursue power. Guaranteed hit and power are the core pursuits of my Hunyuan Dao of the blade. Whether facing the Heavenly Origin Camp or Shadow Lord, Luo Feng had realized the importance of guaranteeing a hit. No matter how strong the power, if it can't hit the enemy, its effectiveness is greatly reduced. His Source Great Destruction, for example, was an indiscriminate attack in all directions. After using it once, any enemy fighting him would guard against it. Having a tremendously strong body, limitless energy, quick recovery for companions, and powerful techniques was standard for a lord, but Luo Feng wasn't content. He wanted to compensate for weaknesses and create a second Hunyuan Dao. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Luo Feng unleashed 1,000 dark blade lights. Each one followed life aura, pierced space-time, and struck the target. Shadow Lord panicked and retreated. The continuous blade lights were constantly eroding his vitality, and the limitless blood sea's regeneration couldn't keep up. In the blink of an eye, he crossed more than half of Blood Crane territory and arrived beside Blood Lord and Crane Lord. He runs really fast. Luo Feng stopped as well. Even with life locking, his current technique had limited range. There's no way to fight him. Shadow Lord felt wronged. He looked at Blood Lord and Crane Lord at his side. This Luo Feng's body is too powerful. Previously, he teamed with Wu Lan and, with the help of the formation, withstood the siege of 100 progenitors. Even alone now, I can't harm him at all. Fighting him is just me taking a beating. With your ability, can he even hit you? Crane Lord asked, puzzled. As long as I stay within a certain range, even if I keep changing and shifting positions, I still can't escape his dark blade lights. Bloodlord shook his head. It's life aura locking, he said. He also commanded the highest level of life-type power and could reach in silently by life aura. This Luo Feng is probably adept in life-type power, but has mastered its Tao, so he's stronger than I am. When a lord masters the underlying Tao of a force, they can exert greater power with the same type of ability. Lords can also fashion physical bodies that perfectly suit themselves. This Luo Feng's body is powerful and his techniques fierce, Bloodlord said calmly. But his weakness is obvious. He's weak in movement techniques. We just have to avoid him. He won't be able to touch us at all. Bloodlord himself, an expert in life-type power, also lacked movement skills, so he understood Luo Feng's situation well. But Blood Crane territory was his homeland. Within it, Bloodlord was much more mobile than Luo Feng. Always avoiding him? Shadow Lord asked. It's a bit frustrating, Crane Lord said, unwilling. Crane Lord wielded undying power and was not afraid of battle. Can you be stronger than dozens of progenitors combined? Bloodlord warned. The two of you together can't harm him in the slightest. Crane, don't think your body is enough. When Luo Feng's source Great Destruction erupted, Giant God Emperor, Primal Chaos Beast Ancestor, and Black Tide Ancestor didn't even dare resist together, and it heavily injured 26 surrounding progenitors. Are you sure you can withstand it? Crane Lord's heart trembled. In terms of defense, he was certainly inferior to Wu Lan, who had mastered the Hunyuan material Tao. If the three of us team up and have the terrain advantage, mobilizing the vast power of the limitless Blood Sea to assist me, then I dare to engage him in close combat, Crane Lord said. He had witnessed the might of Luo Feng's source Great Destruction and still felt apprehensive about one-on-one combat. Can we kill him? Cause him any trouble? Bloodlord shook his head. Since he poses no real threat here, there's no need to fight. If we hide from him in Blood Crane territory, he won't be able to touch us and will naturally give up and leave. He's already come into Blood Crane territory, and we still have to endure it? Shadow Lord was unwilling. All right, I'll listen to Elder Brother. Crane Lord could only nod. Only with Bloodlord's assistance, under the help of endless vitality and combined with his undying ability, would Crane Lord dare close combat with Luo Feng. Since Bloodlord refused meaningless fights, Crane Lord had to swallow his pride. Luo Feng sensed that Shadow Lord's true body had retreated across more than half the Blood Crane territory in an instant, and that the three hadn't approached. They're keeping more than half of Blood Crane territory between us, unwilling to fight me? He had to admit it. If the three hid from him, he had no way to force them. Unless he called for help, someone like Starlight Lord, the foremost expert in space-time attainments in infinite mixed origin space. With him, the enemy could never escape. Every Tao had strengths and weaknesses. Although cultivator lords were powerful, each could rival 2 or 3 progenitors or even withstand the siege of 8 or 10 for self-preservation. No cultivator lord had ever truly killed a progenitor alone. Historically, it was always lords cooperating that could sever all life from a progenitor. Since they're hiding from me, Luo Feng looked toward a distant spot, sensing the core source of the vast limitless Blood Sea. He felt a strange affinity with the Blood Sea and was very curious. The power of the limitless Blood Sea had been formed by 3 highest-level forces, one of which was life-type power. In the short time since entering Blood Crane territory, Luo Feng had comprehended 70 to 80% of that life-type power, but he didn't overrate it. It was somewhat narrow. Let's go see the core source of this land. Luo Feng flew at super high speed, piercing the limitless Blood Sea and heading straight for the source he'd sensed. As he approached, he felt a fluctuation, like the heartbeat of the entire limitless Blood Sea. The core source was like the heart, and simply sensing its pulse oppressed him. Compared to the limitless Blood Sea as a whole, he felt small. Interesting. Luo Feng's excitement only grew. He had long heard that some dangers in infinite mixed origin space could annihilate a lord's main combat avatar, but a lord's Tao was part of them, undying and indestructible, so he was not afraid to explore mysteries. I want to see what's special about the core of a mysterious land. He had never witnessed such a source. Cultivator-side mysterious lands like the initial land were refined and controlled by Yuan. Later, lords only reinforced formations. Luo Feng sped on, cutting through layers of blood waves. Where is he flying? The three lords of Blood Crane territory, who had been avoiding battle, noticed something wrong. He's rapidly approaching the Blood Crane territory source. Bloodlord, Crane Lord, and Shadow Lord's expressions all changed. Progenitors who seek undying and indestructible life most commonly use two methods. One is life core evolution. After reaching a certain level, their abilities can make them undying. Initial, Mother of Spacetime, and Emberfire Ancestor used this method. The other is to control a mysterious land and fuse one's life core with its source. As long as the land remains, the individual remains undying. Infinite Serpent Ancestor was an example. Controlling a mysterious land also lets one borrow part of the land's power to enhance oneself. For example, Infinite Serpent Ancestor could make himself ethereal and comparable to a world cluster. The infinite world can reflect the entire infinite mixed origin space. Even using part of its abilities yields boundless effect, and he fears no direct combat. Could it be that he wants to refine the Blood Crane territory source? Bloodlord, Crane Lord, and Shadow Lord had longed to refine and control the Blood Crane territory source and become truly undying, but the difficulty was immense. The three of them had failed. Just as among the Infinite Great Serpent clan, only Infinite Serpent Ancestor could refine the Infinite World source, not a single Giant God clan ancestor had refined the Giant God World source. That showed how incredibly hard it was. We cannot let Luo Feng get close. Stop him. The three lords of Blood Crane territory agreed absolutely. Chapter 397, Luo Feng versus the three lords of the Blood Crane territory. Bloodlord, Crane Lord, and Shadow Lord all understood one thing clearly. Even if Luo Feng managed to refine the Blood Crane territory source, the odds of success were slim. Still, they dared not leave it to chance. They would not even let him attempt it. In the past, some ancestor-level cultivators entered our Blood Crane territory and couldn't even sense the territory source, Bloodlord said. This Lord Luo Feng can sense it. That means his path is unusually compatible with our source. He's probably specialized in the life aspect rather than undying or shadow. His chance of refining it may be low, Crane Lord added. No matter how low, Shadow Lord concluded, we cannot let him come close. Working together, the three lords closed the distance rapidly. Traveling with company made a huge difference. In only a few breaths, they had reached Luo Feng. Luo Feng, moving at full speed, sensed three formidable presences ahead and slowed. They came together, he thought. Three figures coalesced before him, each similar in size but utterly different in essence. Bloodlord was lithe, with scaled wings and a body sheathed in exquisite scarlet scales, each scale like a blood-colored gem. Crane Lord was a colossal flying beast, its body covered in feathers with a silver-gold sheen, each feather like an unbreakable blade. Shadow Lord was a massive, warped phantom, its blood-red eyes fixed on Luo Feng. Lord Luo Feng, Bloodlord spoke first. Shadow Lord's intrusion into your cultivator territory was his fault. At that time, you were beset by the Heavenly Origin Camp. The world thought your territory would fall, and many took the opportunity to seize world clusters. After the war ended, it was natural for you to expel him. Our Blood Crane territory promises not to invade your cultivator territory again. Can you drop this matter? You expect me to accept that on a promise? Luo Feng asked coolly. What do you want? Crane Lord's tone turned sour. Triple the resources you obtained from the cultivator territory as compensation, and we will let it go. Luo Feng named the sum. The three lords exchanged glances, unwilling but tempted. You must also promise that once compensated, you will never set foot in Blood Crane territory again, Bloodlord insisted. If you agree, we'll give you the compensation. They knew, though Bloodlord commanded the highest life power, Luo Feng's grasp of the life path could make him likelier to refine the territory source. He could not be allowed to return. Triple the compensation to overlook your invasion, Luo Feng said. As for Blood Crane territory, I'll go whenever I want. He'd noticed their previous arrogance dissolve into willingness to pay for his departure. That meant his future advancement could cost them far more than those resources. He smiled. Try and stop me then. Attack! Crane Lord screamed and surged forward with a limitless blood wave. Bloodlord and Shadow Lord struck at the same time. In unison, they unleashed the power of the limitless blood sea, each contributing their strength until the entire sea seemed alive. Surging blood waves thundered, a terrifying onslaught. Luo Feng was unperturbed. He'd survived the war between the camps. This was nothing new. He drew his sky-rending blade, but the moment he did, countless phantoms tried to bind him in his blade. He forced himself free with a burst of power and slashed at Crane Lord as the beast rushed close. Crane Lord offered little resistance. The blade struck his throat. Feathers gleamed, dissipating much of the force. Only a few surface feathers cracked and quickly healed. Luo Feng cut again, but Crane Lord's sharp talons latched at his chest, meeting a protective energy layer and causing only a ripple. Up close, they exchanged blows without inflicting major damage on one another. Suddenly, Crane Lord let loose an ear-piercing cry. His beak struck like a golden afterimage. One blow pierced Luo Feng's protective layer and pecked a bloody hole in his chest. The wound healed almost instantly. Then feathers exploded into silver-white light, turning into beams that assaulted Luo Feng point-blank. Though numerous, they lacked the single piercing power of that beak strike and failed to penetrate his protections. "Your undying body is formidable," Luo Feng said, acknowledging Crane Lord's resilience. Crane Lord was furious. His full-strength attack had only made a scratch on Luo Feng, and he knew all too well how quickly Luo Feng could recover from such damage. Even a source great destruction could recondense Luo Feng into a whole form. The wound was meaningless. On the tactical channel, Bloodlord transmitted, "These lords who have mastered paths are terrifyingly strong in their specialties. Luo Feng's defenses surpass yours and mine. We must follow the plan and block him entirely." Crane Lord agreed. The three of them were masters of the highest level powers, life, undying, and shadow, geared toward survival. Their vitality was tenacious, though their offensive power was comparatively weak. Precisely because of their self-preservation were they still standing while many ancestors born in the infinite mixed origin space had fallen. Shadow Lord's ability to appear and vanish made them especially dangerous to weaker forces. This time, however, they'd provoked the Cultivator camp. The limitless blood sea surged, shattering Luo Feng's Shengmi domain and wrapping him in crimson waves. Crane Lord and Bloodlord engaged him in close combat, one with an undying body, the other fused with the blood sea. Shadow power knotted at every limb and even affected Luo Feng's internal body. He could neither fly nor move freely. Luo Feng erupted with blade light, but Crane Lord's massive wings embraced and entangled him, letting the blade strike his body while his undying constitution rapidly healed the damage. Bloodlord merged into the blood sea to bolster their defenses. Watching quietly from the sea's surface were world-level Hunyuan avatars, muted but awed. "That Cultivator Lord is terrifying," one murmured. "Even with the limitless blood sea aiding Bloodlord, Crane Lord, and Shadow Lord, they can only hold him back, not hurt him. That one lord can contend with several ancestors. Saying the Cultivator camp is strong isn't an exaggeration." Far away, a peculiar world, isolated from all life and hidden in the infinite mixed origin space, watched the fight through a giant eye in its membrane. If Luo Feng had been outside the Blood Crane territory, the three would not have held him. But inside, their power increased. Each gained at least 50% strength from the territory and the limitless blood sea. The observer judged Luo Feng's moves to contain the essence of creation and destruction. If he pursued that to the extreme, he could become more terrifying than even Starlight Lord. Starlight Lord's avatars had already replayed Luo Feng's past, present, and likely future, and watched this battle as well. He recognized the mixed origin life extinguishment Dao in Luo Feng and saw a sliver of hope that Luo Feng could refine the territory source. He smiled but did not intervene. The lords acted individually unless invited to join a major clash. Grudges and ordinary battles were left to their possessors. Inside the territory, Luo Feng's mind moved. He suddenly released countless primordial origins, 360 million, like brilliant stars, into a tight formation. The origins contracted like hearts before detonating, producing a chain reaction aimed at Blood Lord and Crane Lord. Destroying a physical body and detonating a portion of his primordial origins was hard to control precisely, but using only 30% of his reserves, he could steer most of the blast's direction. Not good. Crane Lord and Blood Lord were alarmed as the 360 million origins erupted in a source great destruction the moment they flew out. Though only 30% of his reserves, the blast was comparable to Wulan's entire energy cache. Feathers shattered. Crane Lord's body was blasted back. Blood Lord melted into the blood sea, letting the sea take most of the shock. Yet Crane Lord endured and quickly recovered with Blood Lord's aid. It's not that great, Crane Lord thought, relief coloring his face. What he feared most was a full-strength source great destruction from Luo Feng, but this felt weaker. Luo Feng realized it too. At the Lord level, it was exceedingly difficult to amplify a finishing move. For example, his 30% source great destruction could be suppressed by 3 powerful ancestors acting together. Only a 60% eruption could truly break such resistance, and a 90% eruption would be catastrophic for almost any defender. A 30% burst, however, could still repulse them. After blasting Crane Lord and Blood Lord aside, Luo Feng surged forward. Shadow Lord intercepted with the other 2, entangling him again. Just as they began to close in, another dense volley of 360 million primordial origins blasted forth. The repetitive explosions overwhelmed them. Each time they tried to block, they were repelled by the terrifying impact. How can he repeat that? Bloodlord and the others were stunned. Every time Luo Feng detonated 30% of his reserves, he could recover a portion, about 10%, within 2 or 3 breaths. Effectively, each burst cost him only 20% net. That meant he could unleash a weakened source great destruction every 2 to 3 breaths. 30% when released, but recoverable enough to use repeatedly during the assault. The blasts were enough to shove Bloodlord and the others aside and allow him to keep advancing. "What do we do?" they asked each other, helpless. The explosions continued, boom, boom, one after another. Luo Feng pressed onward. After being blasted 29 times, the 3 lords finally ceased their attempts to intercept him. They gave up. The cost to them had become unacceptable. Not far ahead, Luo Feng sensed the core origin of the Blood Crane territory. "I've arrived," he thought. Thanks to the new Alliance Masters Nuli Pangxi and Jiameng for their generous donations. Also, thanks to the old Alliance Master Very for his generous donation. Thank you all for your support. Chapter 398, Blood Crane Territory Origin. Surrounded by the vast, limitless blood sea, Luo Feng gazed ahead. He could feel the Blood Crane territory source directly in front of him, yet every method of observation failed to reveal it clearly. It felt real and yet illusory. Following the profound fluctuations, he delved deeper into the enigma. Gradually, a hint of the source's form emerged in his mind. The source was minuscule in physical size, smaller than any particle of matter, yet its influence extended throughout the entire Blood Crane territory. As Luo Feng pressed on, the intricate structure of the Blood Crane territory source unfolded in his perception. It was an even more colossal and profound construct than a source world origin. He must be observing the Blood Crane territory source. From a distance, the Blood Lord, the Crane Lord, and the Shadow Lord watched. They could not see clearly from the sidelines, but they understood well enough. This cultivator lord, Luo Feng, had already plunged deep into observing the source. The Blood Lord felt a surge of unwillingness. "He has a deeper grasp of life than I do, so he can perceive the source," he muttered. "Are we just going to let him observe it? Let him try to refine it?" the Shadow Lord demanded. "Can you stop him?" the Crane Lord shot back, warning in his tone. "This is your doing. I told you not to provoke the 3 great camps, but you insisted. Now look at the trouble you brought." The Shadow Lord felt wronged. He was weaker in direct combat than the Cultivator Lords, but he could manifest in countless ways and believed himself effectively immortal. With the Blood Crane territory as his homeland, he had confidence. Who expected Luo Feng to actually begin observing and attempting to refine the Blood Crane territory source? "Try attacking," the Bloodlord said uneasily. "Exhaust every method to see if we can stop him." Reluctantly, the Crane Lord and the Shadow Lord agreed. Boom, the limitless blood sea surged. The 3 lords melded with the sea, channeling its boundless power, and together they besieged Luo Feng. They tried every means. But each of the 3 lords excelled at a different highest level power, one in life, one in undying power and one in shadow power. They were formidable at self-preservation, but not especially lethal. "How noisy," Luo Feng murmured. Seated cross-legged, his protective energy layer guarded his surroundings and repelled every attack. Since he did not need to travel, enduring their assaults was easy. Despite the combined might of the three lords and the limitless blood sea, they could not pierce his protection. The Crane Lord managed a few shallow breaches now and then, producing only superficial wounds. Luo Feng let them expend their efforts, occasionally sending out 360 million origin cores to strike back and let them feel the hits. After only a brief siege, the three lords gave up. "It's useless," the Crane Lord admitted, looking unwillingly at the black-robed, black-haired man sitting serenely. Even 30 to 50 ancestors from the Heavenly Origin Camp working together couldn't destroy Luo Feng. How could we harm him? Luo Feng remained seated in the territory's core, within the limitless blood sea, meticulously observing the Blood Crane territory source. The three lords could do nothing but watch helplessly. "He only comprehends one kind of life power," the Blood Lord said. "The Blood Crane territory source contains 3 highest-level powers. You can't refine it by mastering only one. What he comprehends is a Hunyuan Dao, a primordial Dao. It's even more formidable than yours, brother," the Crane Lord said. "Even if his Dao is stronger than mine, mastering only one power still won't let him refine the source," the Blood Lord countered. "We spent endless years and couldn't refine it," the Shadow Lord added quickly. "How could Lord Luo Feng do it? Besides, his forces in the Cultivator camp have many affairs. He can't stay here forever." The Blood Lord and Crane Lord shot the Shadow Lord warning glances. The invasion of the Cultivator territory had been his solo decision. Now the Shadow Lord felt some regret. Had he retreated when the Cultivator camp sent word, none of this would have happened. If Luo Feng truly refined the Blood Crane territory, the consequences would be immense, and the Shadow Lord's ill-advised provocation might be to blame. Luo Feng, however, was calm. He had spent half a day and finally perceived the complete form of the source. It was a perfect fusion of 3 profound powers: life power, undying power, and shadow power. Together they formed a single, complete source. He had researched source construction deeply before breaking free from the cage. The core of his mixed origin life extinguishment Dao relied on a source system. He carried over 1,080 million sources within his body. Although undying power and shadow power were unfamiliar to him, he could distinguish them. After half a day of study, he discerned how the 3 powers combined into the source. There were 2 viable paths to refining the Blood Crane territory. Source 1. Perfectly master one of the highest level powers and also comprehend how the 3 combine into the source, then follow the clues to refine it. Or 2. Comprehend 2 of the highest level powers, which would make refinement easy. For Luo Feng, the first path suited him better. He already understood how the 3 powers fused to form a source. What he needed now was to fully master this particular life power. Though he had comprehended the mixed origin life extinguishment Dao, that path was a fusion, 70% life, 30% destruction, not a pure life Dao. Mastering this life power alone, however, was not difficult. Before he broke free from the cage, his comprehension, speed of thought, and insight were far weaker. Yet even then, he had forced himself to grasp the mixed origin life extinguishment Dao. Now, as a lord whose deepest accumulation lay in the life direction, focusing purely on this life power seemed straightforward. When he first sensed the Blood Crane territory, he had already perceived 70 to 80% of this life power. Pure life did not aim to control every fragment of power with absolute precision. It sought the ultimate flourishing of life. It did not take the form of a fixed body, but could transform into a limitless blood sea with an incomparably vast physique. Luo Feng understood the implications. If he created a Hunyuan Dao along this path and used it to construct his physical form, his body could become a colossal limitless blood sea, likely larger than the giant god emperor and far greater than Wu Lan. It would be the most massive life form in the limitless primal space, vast, boundless, and able to dissipate enormous amounts of attacking power. Its energy reserves and recovery would be terrifying. Even 100 ancestors together would be no threat. This was the strength of a lord devoted to the pure mixed origin life Dao. But there were drawbacks. Such a body would be too massive and slow to move. It wouldn't be able to mobilize all of its power for killing. In combat, only a portion of the limitless blood sea could be used. My mixed origin life extinguishment Tao pursues absolute control of every bit of power, Luo Feng reflected. I can mobilize all my power in a single thought. Given his current state, his energy reserves were already at the limit. Any greater, and he would begin to lose control. He didn't need to comprehend a pure mixed origin life Tao, just fully mastering this one type of life power would suffice. It was a path that interested him, and he began to analyze and refine his understanding. Origin continent, source world. Inside an ancient cave dwelling in Huyang City, a tall, burly man opened his eyes in a daze. He looked around at the familiar layout of his family's cave dwelling, a scene from his youth. Shang Tianyan murmured to himself, bewildered. He had died at the hands of Sang Shuyun, the blood cloud divine monarch. At that time, he had used his life to confirm Sang Shuyun's identity and had left a karmic tracing token for the Ninejiang Marquis's side so the blood cloud divine monarch could be tracked. How was he alive? Reincarnated? He wondered, but only a very few retained memories after reincarnation, and Shang Tianyan's memories were intact. He felt confusion and alarm. Brother Shang, a voice sounded. Luo Feng stood nearby, black-robed and black-haired, but with a pair of dark golden horns on his forehead. His appearance from when he first arrived at the origin continent after passing through the reincarnation passage. Shang Tianyan recognized him instantly, but this Luo He was not the friend he remembered. The aura around him transcended the profound workings of the heavens and earth. As a master refiner, Shang Tianyan perceived Luo Feng's presence as something beyond even the laws of heaven and earth. You died more than 10,000 epochs ago, Luo Feng said with a smile. I retrieved you from that past timeline in the river of time and brought you to the present, extending your life. Shang Tianyan was stunned. River of time? Retrieved from a past timeline? Luo Feng explained quietly that he had also resurrected the lives Shang Tianyan most cared about, the 125 people who had once been lost to him. He gestured toward a garden in the cave dwelling. One by one, more than 100 figures appeared on the lawn, bewildered and looking around as if waking from a dream. Shang Tianyan stared in disbelief. Among them were his wife, his young children, his long-deceased parents, his elder brother who had raised him, comrades who had shared life and death with him, fellow Taoists he had studied refining with, and his cherished, regretted disciples. Everyone he had mourned over a long life had returned. The swell of emotion overwhelmed him, joy, disbelief, and a quiet, trembling fear. This can't be an illusion, he thought. He had once been deceived by Menghua Luzhu with illusions. He feared deception. Then a woman in the distance cried out his name with joy. Tears filled Shang Tianyan's eyes. Go, Luo Feng said, smiling. Reunite with your family and friends. Then he vanished, leaving them to their reunion. Luo Feng watched from a distance, smiling as Shang Tianyan embraced those he had lost. That was the meaning of resurrection. Shang Tianyan had been Luo Feng's only true friend during the eternal true God stage, someone who had pitied the weak and even sacrificed his life for all beings. Luo Feng admired his character deeply and decided that he would later give Shang Tianyan a place in the administration of the Origin Continent faction. The core of that faction would include Morosa, Zuo Shanqi, and Di Chu, along with other stewards such as Di Qing, Emperor Chu Yu, Mo Yu Qingyan, Shang Tianyan, and many more. Luo Feng's plans were already taking shape as he watched the reunion unfold. Chapter 396, The Highest Level Power, Blood Power, Initial Land, Council Hall. Around the Dark Realm crystal circular table, Yuan, Jin, Wulan, Minghuang, Naigu, Xingmang, Moman, and Brother Luo Feng, the 8 lords, had already taken their seats. Has anyone run into trouble reclaiming territory? Yuan asked. No, Wulan shook his head. We sent a message, and they withdrew voluntarily. Jin grinned. Same here. Xingmang frowned. I'm still trailing Mo Gus. During the clash between our cultivator camp and the Heavenly Origin camp, Mo Gus devoured the souls of living beings from more than 6 million source worlds. That's restrained for him. He actually begged for mercy, but I ignored him and kept the pursuit. So far, I've annihilated 89% of his power. Mo Gus? Yuan's eyes flashed with hatred. I wish I could wipe him out completely. I would never forgive him, Jin said, reluctant. Luo Feng's expression was grim. In the infinite mixed origin space, there were over 200 ancestor-level existences in all. Mo Gus ranked among the very top. He was an undying being specialized in soul power. In threat and destructiveness, he outclassed more than half of the cultivator lords. Before Jingmang was born, scarcely anyone could touch him. He did as he pleased, needing no resources other than an immense supply of souls. He could infiltrate and possess countless weak living beings across the infinite mixed origin space, making himself virtually unkillable. The Heavenly Origin Camp had no way to eliminate Mo Gus. Rather than fight him, they tried to court him, offering Skyborn mixed source life for him to consume. Although Skyborn mixed source life was abundant overall, cultivators inside source worlds, especially inside the cage, were far more numerous, and their souls were cunning and delicious. They were Mo Gus's favorite delicacy. The cultivator camp forbade Mo Gus from feasting on cultivators. If he did, the cultivators would pursue him relentlessly. Outside the cultivator territory, many source worlds had already been stripped by progenitors and were nearly barren, but the 3,600 world clusters within the cultivator territory still contained countless source worlds and a vast number of cultivator beings. Mo Gus had long been salivating at that harvest. When the war broke out, the Starlight Lord's main clone was occupied fighting the Heavenly Origin Camp, and Mo Gus began infiltrating and devouring source worlds one after another. He gorged himself until the war ended, and only then did the Starlight Lord launch full pursuit, chasing him across space-time and attacking any place where Mo Gus's hiding power left a trace. His essence can merge into endless weak lives, Yuan said. Only Xing Mang, who can observe past and future, can track the countless traces of his presence. This time I must destroy at least 99% of his power, Starlight Lord said coldly. Make him spend a very long recovery so he never dares return to the cultivator territory. He only dared claim 99% because Mo Gus was undying. The farther you pressed an undying existence down, the harder it became to annihilate the last remnants. Only if all living beings in all source worlds, every high-level and world-level Hunyuan life, were extinguished, might there be a hope of depriving Mo Gus of hosts entirely. His body is composed of soul power, Yuan added. Once 99% is gone, his recovery will be extremely slow. Before Xingmang became a lord, we had no way to deal with Mo Gus, Wu Lan sighed. Those were miserable times. In the old days, the cultivator camp could only negotiate with Mo Gus. Only after Xingmang rose to lord did the camp gain the confidence to pursue him. Mo Gus is undying. We can't kill him. We can only hurt him so badly he never dares come here again, Yuan said. Any other trouble? He asked the group. I ran into trouble, Mo Man said. Lotus Hell Mountain Master has completely re-entrenched himself. I can't dislodge him. Lotus Hell Mountain Master? Several of them frowned. Those familiar with the history knew the cultivator camp had begun weak and expanded over time. The current 3,600 world clusters had once been the early heartland, called the Lotus Hell Cluster, ruled long ago by Lotus Hell Mountain Master. He and his kin had consumed the source world origin of countless source worlds until the cultivator camp drove them out and established a space-time net to keep progenitors out. Taking advantage of the war, Lotus Hell Mountain Master has returned, Mo Man said. I can suppress him, but not defeat him. I'll go with you, Yuan offered. With my formations, he'll be forced to flee. Lotus Hell Mountain Master was an existence comparable to a limitless progenitor or an annihilation ancestor. Although he had not reached undying, attempts by the Seven Lords to kill him had failed. When attacked by lords other than Yuan, he could entrench himself and endure. Only Yuan's formations effectively checked him, cutting off his ability to draw power from Hunyuan's space. Confronted by Yuan, Lotus Hell Mountain Master had to retreat. Brother Luo Feng, is your true body still in the Blood Crane territory? Jin asked. Does that weak Blood Crane territory dare to tangle with our cultivator camp? Among the 200-plus ancestor-level existences, some were strong, others weak. A seat among the undying in the eternal land did not guarantee immense power. Only about 30 or so were truly dominant. The 3 in the Blood Crane territory were comparatively weak. Don't underestimate them, Yuan replied with a smile. Bloodlord, Crane Lord, and Shadow Lord of the Blood Crane territory have astonishing life-preserving abilities. Together, inside their mysterious territory, they can be more troublesome than Lotus Hell Mountain Master. Without the mysterious territory's advantages, those three lords would be much weaker. Brother Luo Feng, do you need help? Ming Huang asked. No need, Luo Feng smiled. This Blood Crane territory has a connection with me. I'm fairly confident I can refine this mysterious territory. All seven turned to look. Refine a mysterious territory? You're confident? Jin asked, envy plain on his face. Luo Feng, you only just became a lord, haven't you? Wulan added, I've searched the infinite mixed origin space for a mysterious territory suitable for me and found none. Ming Huang, Naigu, and the others felt mixed. Even a lord coveted a mysterious territory. Its power could bless and strengthen its lord, and inside it one's power could become extraordinary. Among us 8 lords, only Yuan and Xingmang each control a mysterious territory, Naigu lamented. Luo Feng, you've just broken through and already found one you can refine? I didn't expect the Blood Crane territory to suit me so well, Luo Feng laughed. Xingmang chuckled beside him. When I comprehended the second Hunyuan Dao, I discovered a tiny mysterious territory called Time Star. It's the smallest known, even smaller than this council hall. I visited Time Star once, Jin said. It was so small I occupied 1/10 of it when I sat there. It drifts through different timelines, sometimes past, sometimes future. Its time travel is nothing compared to mine, Xingmang said with a faint smile, but it's indestructible and gives me extra defenses. Mysterious territories usually integrate several types of highest-level powers, and each has some aspects we're weak at, no matter, Yuan explained. Refining one lets you borrow its powers. How long to refine it? Yuan asked Luo Feng. Probably a few epochs, Luo Feng answered. So fast, they murmured, surprised. Luo Feng had broken through by force, and even while in the cage, had grasped the mixed origin life extinguishment Dao quickly. A few epochs to refine a territory now seemed believable. 3 epochs later, Yuan and Mo Man cooperated to drive Lotus Hell Mountain Master out of the Lotus Hell cluster once more. For Lotus Hell Mountain Master, that cluster had been home and the surrounding source world's food for his clan, but the cultivator camp would not allow him to remain. Starlight Lord continued his pursuit of Mogus across space-time. Deep inside the Blood Crane territory, Luo Feng sat cross-legged in the limitless Blood Sea. Bloodlord, Crane Lord, and Shadow Lord came often to observe, but none could stop him from probing the essence of the Blood Crane territory. Is this the highest level power, blood power? Luo Feng asked himself. He had grasped 70 to 80% at the outset, but to master this highest level life power completely, even with Luo Feng's comprehension and insight, took more than 3 epochs. He now fully understood the gulf between a highest level power and the Tao that governs that class of powers. Blood power could form a physical body, slay enemies, create domains, restore allies, but the body it formed was the Blood Sea form, and the Blood Sea's capacity was limited. A single blood power form's energy reserve came to only about 60% of Luo Feng's current reserve. Only by comprehending the mixed origin life extinguishment Tao and shaping the most suitable life form according to that Tao could one possess the largest possible life form in the infinite mixed origin space. Compared to Luo Feng's mixed origin-derived form, a standalone blood power form had markedly lower stats. Energy reserve 60% of his, movement far slower, life spirituality about 80% of his, recovery only 50%, and enemy killing ability a mere 30% of his. It was worth noting that apart from his great destruction techniques, Luo Feng's enemy killing ability was only average among the lords. So, for blood power's killing power to be only 30% of Luo Feng's meant it was mediocre even among progenitors. Cultivator lords therefore rarely cultivated a different category of highest level power. Mastering the Tao of a category makes a single specific power within that category of limited use to them, and other categories fall outside their expertise. Having comprehended blood power, the next step is to refine the Blood Crane territory source, Luo Feng said with anticipation. That was the only part blood power could help him with. Chapter 400, Refining the Blood Crane Territory. The Blood Crane territory source was a vast, unfathomable domain, deeper even than many origin worlds. Luo Feng had only mastered one of its compatible powers, blood power, so his refinement progressed slowly. Guided by blood power, he followed the vine to its root and pushed ever deeper. With a source this immense, luck alone would not take you far. Only by understanding how to combine its forces could one refine it properly, layer by layer, gradually penetrating its depths. The three lords of the Blood Crane territory felt a tremor run through them. He's refining the Blood Crane territory source. He started refining it. All three had once mastered one of the highest level powers the territory harmonized with, and over the years they had tried to refine the source countless times. None had succeeded, but they knew the source intimately. No change could escape their notice. A mysterious land's source is inherently extremely difficult to refine, one of them murmured. The three highest level powers converge into that source. It's immensely profound. If we couldn't do it, how could he? The Blood Lord, the Crane Lord, and the Shadow Lord tracked the refining progress and felt mounting anxiety. They could not accept the idea that Lord Luo Feng, the cultivator, might refine their birthplace. The Blood Crane territory was uniquely compatible with them. Across the infinite mixed origin space, there was no other domain as perfectly matched to their highest powers. For them, the progenitors, it was their home, their power base, and their hope. On one hand, the territory allowed them to draw on a portion of the limitless blood sea, pushing their strength to its peak so they could face any enemy. It also constantly birthed new kin, enlarging the clan and offering a chance that future ancestor-level existences might emerge. On the other hand, refining their hometown source was the one true path to undying for an ancestor level. Without becoming undying, one remained a movable piece. Only through undying could one become a permanent player in the infinite mixed origin space. That hope was now evaporating, and they were frantic. His refining has already passed what I managed back then, the Blood Lord said, solemn, and he hasn't hit any bottlenecks. The whole process has been smooth. The Crane Lord added, I've long heard Cultivator Lord's comprehension is terrifying. This proves it. Among the 8 lords of the Cultivator camp, only Luo Feng and Xing Mang had recently broken through. Both demonstrated comprehension that awed the others. To grasp a Hunyuan Dao under the cage was staggering. Given the territory's compatibility with Luo Feng, finishing a refinement in a few epochs was not impossible. Days slipped by. In 5 days, Luo Feng continued without stumbling. The 3 progenitors monitored him as his progress climbed, 80%, then over 90. Their faces tightened. We must leave, the Blood Lord said. Once Luo Feng fully refines the territory, his strength inside it will peak. He'll be able to mobilize the whole territory's power. At that point, none of us could leave, even if we tried. The 3 of them acted immediately. The Shadow Lord, whose unilateral decision to invade the Cultivator territory had brought them to this point, roared in bitter guilt. The Blood Lord and Crane Lord cast him frosty looks. Their homeland, their clan's future, their last hope for undying had been threatened because of him. They began evacuating the clan at once. Using the Shadow Lord's mobility, they summoned their world-level Hunyuan followers. The Blood Crane territory is about to be refined by the cultivator Lord Luo Feng, they transmitted. This is a calamity for our clan. We must migrate. Stay here, and you will be enslaved to the cultivator camp. The world-level Hunyuan, though shocked, understood the stakes and agreed to leave. The 3 progenitors collected as many of their scattered high-level origin life as they could along the way. The limitless blood sea spread them thin. Many could not be reached in time. Countless high-level origin life begged to be taken, but the 3 lords had to prioritize. The world-level Hunyuan first, then whatever high-level origin life they could rally. To them, the weakest life forms were virtually expendable in the face of existential crisis. By then, the Blood Crane territory's limitless blood sea had become turbulent. The 3 massive figures streaked out of range, heading for the remote Black River World cluster rather than the Heavenly Origin camp. The Crane Lord asked where to go, to seize another territory or join the Heavenly Origin camp, but the Blood Lord warned that joining any faction required caution. They chose the Black River World cluster for the time being, a place far from the cultivator territory. The Shadow Lord kept silent. His shame weighed heavily on him. Meanwhile, ancient observers across the infinite mixed origin space had noticed the commotion. From far away, they could see the surging blood sea, and the black-clothed, black-haired man sat cross-legged at its center. Among the 8 lords of the cultivator camp, this newly breakthrough Lord Luo Feng can refine a domain so quickly, they murmured. The Blood Crane territory's powers, blood, undying, shadow, are all protective in nature. If he gains a portion of that domain's power, his defensive capabilities will improve dramatically. Some old existences felt relieved. Defensive strength only meant better survival and life-saving ability. Even undying cultivator lords, if their protectiveness grew, were not as threatening as offensive might. At least for now, Luo Feng's domain refinement seemed to enhance protection more than anything else. Then, as quickly as it had roiled, the limitless blood sea calmed. In its center, Luo Feng sat cross-legged on the water, a robe the color of blood forming naturally around him. "It's quiet," murmured those high-level origin life who had remained inside the territory's range, and they tried to move out. Their power was weak and their flight slow. Earlier plunder raids had always been coordinated under the Lord's leadership. Now the sea was steady, almost solid, and they could not break through the waves. Luo Feng opened his eyes. He had completed the refinement of the Blood Crane territory's source. The mixed origin life extinguishment Tao was part of his being, and the territory's source had become part of him as well. Like an origin world power, the source's effects were strongest within its domain, though a mysterious land's power could be partially drawn from far away. Sensing the territory's energy, Luo Feng realized it granted him reserves that could rival 3 or 4 lords acting together. A domain's energy store surpassed any single life form. Like the initial land in the cultivator camp, the Blood Crane territory could supply its clan with immense power. Concentrating, Luo Feng brought the remaining 7.5 billion high-level origin life within the territory to his immediate vicinity. The dense mass of individuals, members of the Blood Crane clan, looked upon the majestic cultivator lord, blood-robed and enormous in spirit, and instinctively prostrated themselves. "Greetings, great Lord Luo Feng," they intoned, filled with awe. To them, even progenitors and cultivator lords were formidable. Luong's voice resounded in their hearts. "Are you willing to submit to me?" "We are willing," they cried in unison. The 7.5 billion high-level origin life of the Blood Crane clan bowed without a single dissenter. Any remaining pride among the Skyborn mixed-source lives who had once hoped the heavenly origin camp would prevail had vanished. With the territory refined and the 3 progenitors fled, resistance was futile. Luo Feng nodded. At that moment, he had gained over 7.5 billion high-level origin life servants.